This meeting of the General Governance Committee is being held virtually. This meeting is also being live streamed and may be viewed online at ajax.ca/live. Friendly reminder to all participants to please activate your microphone only when recognized by the chair. I'll now call this meeting to order. We'd like to begin this meeting by acknowledging the land on which we gather is situated within the traditional and treaty territories of the Mississaugas. More specifically, the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation, signatories of the Gunshot Treaty of 1788 and the Williams Treaties of 1923. This land is and will continue to be home to the Indigenous peoples. Let us acknowledge the mistakes and traumas of the past through authenticity and support truth and reconciliation. Let us engage and celebrate Indigenous community by being leaders of action in acknowledging the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples and the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's recommendations towards truth and reconciliation. Let us keep these principles close as we move forward, as we continue towards truth and reconciliation, as we move forward with kindness and respect as a community. We'll now call this meeting to order. Any disclosures of Q&A interests from committee? Seeing none, can I get a mover for the adoption of minutes? I see Councillor Bauer. Any questions, comments, concerns on the minutes of April 13th, 2026? Seeing now none, we'll start the vote. And that passes. Can I get a mover for the closed meeting of April 13th, 2026? I see Councillor Henry, thank you. Does anybody need to go into closed session to discuss the closed meeting minutes? Councillor Crawford, did you want to go into closed session to discuss the minutes? Councillor Crawford?
No. I was gonna. Oh, we don't need a seconder. Sorry, I apologize.
No, all good. Thank you. All right, seeing none, then we will move the minutes. Start the vote. My stop vote button is not there. It is. Okay, and that passes. We're going to change the agenda a bit, Council. Before the consent agenda, we're actually going to go to items 6, which is all the presentations, due to the fact that we have consultants on the call today. So we're going to start with presentation 6.1, the Financial Sustainability Plan Update from Hemson Consulting Limited. And we'll get Julie, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. So good afternoon, Mayor Collier, members of council. I'm happy today to present to you the Financial Sustainability Plan update. And before I hand it over to our presenters, I'd like to remind council that this Financial Sustainability Plan builds on the prior versions that were brought to council in the past, with the first one being delivered in 2013. Delivering this update was part of the council's strategic plan deliverable this term. The Financial Sustainability Plan is a key part of the town's financial framework, providing a long-term view to support our decisions on infrastructure, services, and growth, and how budgets are funded. Building on our asset management approved levels of service and reflecting all the changing economic decisions, the legislative updates, and the growing pressures on our resources, this plan brings together the pieces to guide the town's long-term financial decisions. Today, you will hear from Hemson Consulting and town staff outlining the analysis that was done and recommended policy directions for council's consideration. So Hemson Consulting was hired in November 2024 to develop a financial model, benchmark Ajax to peers, and provide a long-term outlook based on the 2025 10-year capital forecast and the 2024 development charge background study. So Christopher Bellette and Andrew Mirabella from Hemson Consulting will be delivering a presentation. And following that, Kevin Douglas, the acting supervisor of accounting for the town of Ajax, will then present the staff recommendations and proposed policy updates. This will be for council's consideration and will include how we fund infrastructure, manage reserves, and use debt going forward. So over to Hemson Consulting.
Great. Thanks, Julian. Appreciate the introductions. My name again is Andrew Mirabella. Mirabella. I'm from Hemson Consulting, and alongside with me is Christopher Billette. I'm just sharing my screen. Can everyone see that presentation?
Yes, we can.
Great. Okay, thank you. So
Sorry,
alongside
one moment. Sorry, one moment.
Yep.
Is that our agenda right now? We cannot see your presentation. Can you click again?
Oh. Now?
No.
Nope.
Waiting
Right.
for sharing source.
Okay, try it again. Here we go.
There we go. It's the
looks like
PDF. Yes, we got it.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you, Chair. And alongside with me, sorry, just with my introduction, I'm Andrew Mirabella, and I got Christopher Billette with me. There was a little technical glitch on the email on the connection side. Christopher never received the link, so he's in my office, and you'll see me kind of slide over and pass him over part of the presentation as well here today. So to the point today is about presenting the results of the financial sustainability plan update. Following this presentation, as indicated, town staff will have a subsequent presentation on some of the recommendations and policy items. So really, the Hemson part of the agenda is to go through some of the key findings. We'll go through the background and key assumptions that were used to develop the financial plan. We'll go through the financial forecast and some of the benchmarking analysis that we conducted. We'll provide an overview of the financial policy recommendations, and we'll also just get into some of the key takeaways. And as indicated, this was a piece of work that's been in the development now for well over a year, with a lot of hard work and dedication from town staff in reviewing the models and developing the model in tandem with Hemson. So just as a early thank you to staff for this for the help and the ongoing relationship here through this process. So just as an overview, some of the key findings of the financial sustainability plan update. One of the things that you'll see, and kind of Christopher will allude through, and he goes through some of the technical parts, is the town is in a strong fiscal position, given some of the low debt that currently exists, the reserve fund position as it stands, and some of the financial policies that have been in place, largely due to the earlier work of your financial sustainability plan that was done years ago. The forecast, however, looks at a pretty substantial capital plan and the need of about $740 million through to 2034. And we'll get into what that capital program looks like, but that is a higher level of capital spend than has been seen in the town historically. And in order to do that, there are recognizing an increase in a level of tax increases in order to kind of keep up with that capital plan, recognizing that we'll need additional funding sources to carry out that level of investment. The infrastructure reserves and debt financing are critical tools here that are going to help the town moving forward. One, making sure that we sustain a sufficient balance of reserves on hand, and two, we carry out and we use debt finance in a very strategic way in order to carry out that capital program, and also kind of keeping that debt financing, looking at that over the longer term and how that relates to the provincial requirements as well as the town's debt policy limits. And the town has been proactive in setting a strong policy framework for long-term financial sustainability, but recognizing some adjustments are needed to modernize it, and also to make some adjustments for the way the town would like to do business going forward in order to manage their infrastructure and manage their financial needs over the longer term. One thing I'll note, just as a footnote here, the analysis itself was developed using kind of 2025 budget data, and that's kind of the basis for the fiscal plan here, just because the timing of when the work was undertaken itself. So just in terms of the financial sustainability plan, really builds on the town's work first completed back in 2013, and it's a pretty important document that the town has, and quite forward-looking in the sense that you've developed one back in 2013 and looking at an update and really kind of help drive some of those long-term sustainability requirements. And this is really a good framework and policy objectives to help make informed decision-making. It complements your budget process, really helps the town identify where those challenges and opportunities are going to exist over the next 5 to 10 years, and also helps kind of test different policy directives. And that was one of the key things of this model of what we developed. We were able to test different results and different inputs to look at what those different policy impacts would do to the long-term sustainability of the municipality. So the model itself is quite dynamic in that particular sense and the way we've structured it. So just with kind of some of the background parts, I will now pass it over to my colleague, Christopher Bellette, to kind of go through some of the background data assumptions and some of the key results of the plan itself.
Sounds good. Thank you, Andrew. Apologize for the bit of the switcheroo there on the seats, but nonetheless, we can get right into kind of the assumptions and the forecast side of things. So really, the FSP model is driven by a set of high-level assumptions. We really need these assumptions in order to formulate the entirety of the forecast. Really, the basis here is the 10-year capital plan based out of 2025 with some adjustments based on the asset management plan and as well as the DC study. We also have a development forecast of our housing, population, employment that helps drive a lot of the operating costs and as well as assessment growth in the analysis that we've developed for the town. There's some other components as well. We do reserve forecasting. We forecast those balances based on the capital program, all your needs, all your contributions to reserves, assumptions on interest rates, and so on, in order to understand the outlook of your reserves over the longer term. We also make assumptions on debt financing. We recognize, and you'll see some of this in the rest of this presentation and some of the findings from staff that you'll see subsequent to this. But ultimately, we need to make assumptions on debt financing in order to undertake capital projects that are both critical to the town, but also are significant in terms of the magnitude of the capital program. Debt financing is an important tool that we use as part of the exercise here that complements all your other funding sources and financing methodologies as well. We've also made assumptions on declining reliance to external revenues. Really, what we're talking about here are primarily the Casino Ajax revenues, and recognizing that those revenues have declined over time and potentially pose a risk over the long term. We want to make sure that we're planning for those risks going forward. One last point to make here, like Andrew mentioned, this is the analysis that we undertook as part of this Hempstead retainer was undertaken in 2025. So all our costs that you see here are in 2025 dollars. The first finding on the analysis, the 10-year gross capital program totals just under $740 million. So $740 million from 2025 to 2034, quite an extensive amount of capital. A few things to notice here. In 2025, for example, in terms of the budgeted spend, just under $40 million. But going forward, looking at the actual needs of capital, significant increases in spending are needed in order to maintain those levels of service. So what we're looking at here is the costs of capital in order to be able to service new development. So all your new facilities, your new roads, anything and improvements that are needed as development occurs. But at the same time, your infrastructure is aging. The infrastructure requires maintenance. Those costs are also included in here in order to be able to undertake those capital needs and continue to provide service. To give that some more context, the green line here represents the historical annual average spending on capital of $29.3 million based on some of the historical data from 2019 to 2023, adjusted to $25. Now, in comparison to what you've done before relative to what is projected and needs to be done going forward, that's represented by the blue line of just under $74 million. That's about 2.5 times higher than that historic average. So important to recognize that going forward, there are additional needs that are required in order to be able to service development and undertake state of good repair capital. One last point I'll make about this chart is that this particular picture is not atypical. We are doing a number of these assignments for other municipalities sort of across the province, and the picture is very similar in terms of looking at what the needs are. The needs are extensive, but they are needed in order to continue to provide services for residents. The town will need to utilize all its available financial tools to undertake that capital plan. So what we're looking at here are the reserve balances for two of our critical reserves, or two of the tax funding reserves, particularly focused in the green, the asset management reserves, and in the gold, the development reserve. The development reserve really primarily used for funding non-DC eligible shares of growth-related projects, while your green, the asset management reserves, really related to funding your state of good repair, maintaining your infrastructure over time. The green represent the picture in the green in terms of our asset management reserves. You can see there's, over the forecast period, there is significant pressure over the first few years of that forecast, going from a balance of about $80 million down to just under $60 million. However, there is a buildup of reserves going forward beyond that five-year period. On the development reserve side, we're generally maintaining that development reserve balance just over $20 million over that 10-year forecast period. However, in order to be able to achieve this picture, there's a number of assumptions and forecast findings that need to be kind of outlined. Number one, the 2% infrastructure levy is maintained over the 10-year period. So we're assuming continued reduced reliance on those external sources, or Casino Ajax revenues, which requires the need for the 2% infrastructure levy to continue over time. In addition to that, from the previous slide, you saw the main driver of the kind of the picture here are those extensive capital needs. We do need those funds in order to be able to maintain our reserves from going into a notional or into a negative position. In addition to that, for the development reserve and for the infrastructure that's growth related, but for those shares that can't be funded through development charges, we've assumed debt financing in order to be able to undertake those works. That debt financing is needed to undertake major growth capital, both DC funded and town funded portions. One important thing is we did a number of sensitivity tests and scenarios around this sort of picture. One thing that we found is that without the infrastructure levy or without any debt financing and using those tools, the reserves would be depleted ultimately in terms of from a notional perspective. Doesn't mean that the town will ever allow that to occur, but from a modeling and theoretical perspective, that is the picture that we saw kind of going forward. The alternative would be without these tools, these financing tools, and without the 2% infrastructure levy, in the absence of any other options, we would need to defer capital to future years beyond the 10-year period. The picture here shows the result of that, the real tax levy increase and what that looks like. So the real tax levy increases are needed in order to maintain services. The bar there representing the 5-year forecast average tax levy increase from 26 to 2030. The average annual increase of about 4.2%. That is an increase in the total tax levy. And I'll also add that that is a real increase, meaning inflation is not included as part of that picture. To give that some context, from a historical perspective, the 10-year average real tax levy increase has been about 3.5%, so a little higher, about 0.7% higher, sort of in the going forward forecast. Another point to make here, the green bar represents the forecasted real tax rate increase, once again, without inflation in the picture, of about 2.6%. That's achieved through revenue from the assessment or assessment growth of about 1.6%. So in order to kind of put the full picture here, in the absence of assessment growth, or perhaps if assessment growth was to come in lower than our projection of about 1.6%, that tax rate increase would be higher, given everything else equal, given all the needs that we've identified previously. Now, the outlook post 2031, tax levy increases continue to be needed to meet operating and capital needs. They will continue to be higher than historical spending. The 2% infrastructure levy is needed in order to fund those tax-funded capital needs, as well as an additional debt financing for those major capital works. While the town is expected to continue to grow over the longer term, that generates new assessment, but the cost will also increase demand for those services, which increases those costs as well. Just to finish off kind of the presentation with a couple more slides here on some benchmarking that we've done. This particular picture here shows the town's annual asset management contributions. So what you contribute to capital needs that are related to state of good repair, what you contribute to your reserves on a per capita basis on the left, and on relative to the total replacement value of your tax funded infrastructure on the chart on the right there. In summary, really what we're looking at here is when we compare the town of Ajax, 2 or some of our kind of comparative municipalities. Those contributions fall in kind of the mid-range of the municipalities, showing one or two things, or showing kind of two things really, that the town is comparable to some of our other municipal peers in terms of those contributions, but also this is a tool or a way in order to be able to measure over time how the town of Ajax stacks against other municipalities as well. Following from what we saw in the beginning and Andrew outlined, the town has been doing an excellent job in terms of maintaining the fiscal outlook or the fiscal picture for the municipality. The town's current debt levels are on the low end of comparators. What you see on the chart here is a few pieces of information. The green representing policy limits of comparable municipalities. In the case of the town of Ajax, you have a 7.5% policy limit relative to own source revenues. That comparable policy limit with other municipalities ranges from that range around 7 to 15%. However, in terms of your actual debt, you are quite low. You are on the lower end of these comparables represented by the gold bars, kind of just in and around that 1 to 2% sort of range. So that's well below your policy limit and well below the provincial debt limit of 25% and well below your comparators as well. What that means is that the town does have room or does have opportunity to undertake a lot of that critical capital that's needed, especially your major facilities, major roads, perhaps, that you need to undertake in order to service development and maintain state of good repair on that infrastructure.
Gentlemen, I'm going to stop you here. You are 16 minutes into the 10 minutes allotted. Do you mind just summarizing it for the next 30 seconds, the next 2 slides?
Sure thing. I have 1 slide left. To finalize here, the town is in a strong fiscal position, but some policy adjustments are needed to align with the future outlook. So to summarize, really the outcomes here, reserve and reserve funds, there is opportunities for reallocation of Casino Ajax revenues to development reserve and strategic reserves, developing target balances, and continuing to utilize that 2% infrastructure levy. In terms of the capital program, really looking at the capital program, balancing the first 5 years of that capital plan and aligning those annual budget spends to our reserves and our targets, and as well as reducing reliance, like I mentioned, on the external funding. There's opportunities for additional debt financing as well. The town could consider increasing that debt limit up to 15% relative to the current 7.5% increase. So I'll call it there. That's kind of pretty much my last slide, and I'll open it up to questions if council has any.
I appreciate that. We have many questions. We will start with Councillor Tyler Morin.
Thank you so much, Chair, and thank you for this report. As per the report, we really recently received a report in another meeting how growth is not quite what we thought it was going to be. We're looking at a region that's going to 850,000 by early 2030s, and reaching the million mark almost 10 years farther out than we thought. So my question is, how sustainable is it for the town to continue relying on that growth to fund infrastructure and services? Is there a gap now that we see those numbers have changed? And does this report reflect that?
So I can start with that kind of question. So really, in terms, looking at the analysis here, if growth does not occur to the level that is being projected, two things really happen. Your assessment growth is not going to be projected or coming out to the same level as those initial projections, meaning you'll have less assessment growth than before. That means that you will be obviously producing less tax revenues in order to fund your services. However, on the other side of the equation, we need to think about, if growth isn't occurring to the same level or magnitude that we're expected, perhaps some of those needs and perhaps some of those services are not needed as soon as perhaps what we're projecting. So for example, if growth has slowed down, do we really need to construct those new recreation facilities that are needed in order to be able to service that capacity? Do we need to construct those roads that are needed in order to be able to service that new development? And I recognize that not all infrastructure is built equal. For example, there are certain services where that's easier said than done. Recreation, for example. But in other services where you need to in place some of that infrastructure in order for that development to occur, that may not be necessarily the case. For example, like I mentioned in the example of the road. So there's kind of two sides of the coin when you look at that type of kind of the comparison of development activity.
So if I may, Mr. Chair, so this report and moving forward, the council will have the flexibility to make changes of condition changes. Like this is not a thing where we have to keep referring back saying, well, you agreed. But there is some flexibility here.
That is correct. So part of our retainer for this exercise was the development of a financial model for the town. So a model based in Excel. The intention of that model is it is a dynamic model. At the end of the day, situation changes all the time. We've seen slowdowns in development activities across the board. We've seen changes to pricing and inflation, as you may be aware, different situations occurring with our friends down south and across the world. These are the types of things where the model can be dynamic for that kind of sensitivity testing to see what the outcomes are in this changing environment.
Okay, I've got a couple other questions here. I did my homework. If council, this is considered a very hypothetical situation and question for me, but if council chose to not continue to put 2% into the infrastructure levy, that was changed for some reason, it happens. How would it affect this projection?
Yep.
If I may step in here, there is another staff presentation that does address some of these questions. So I'm just wondering, are we able to go to the second presentation first and then take all the questions?
Do you think that would help answer a lot of? Yeah, you know what? Okay, council, I have the queue. Please stay queued up. We will go into the second presentation and then may answer some of the questions preemptively. So, Director Malcolm, please go ahead.
Sorry, I will ask Kevin Douglas to sign on and deliver the presentation.
Kevin, could you just turn your microphone on, please?
Hey, Jacqueline, can you hear me?
Yeah. Would you like to turn a camera on or no?
Yep, I'll turn my camera on. All right. Does everything look okay? You can hear me okay, and you can see my presentation screen?
Yeah, you're good to go.
All right, awesome. All right, so good afternoon, members of council. So my name is Kevin Douglas. I'm the acting supervisor of accounting, and I'll be going through the 2026 Financial Sustainability Plan staff update to complement the presentation that Christopher and Andrew just did from Hemson. So the agenda of the presentation will go through the FSP model findings. We will walk you through some of the policy change recommendations. And so that includes the funding allocation changes, the budget spending guidelines, some updates to the debt limits, and then we'll finish it off with some key takeaways. So just some background. So as you just heard, Hemson developed a model based on the 2025 capital budget. What town staff did is we updated it for the 2026 capital budget. We did some adjustments to the 9-year capital forecast, and based on the most recent information that we had to date, we did do some adjustments to the revenue findings. And I think Christopher did a very good job of summarizing that the FSP model findings are very similar to what he just went through, even after updating all of those metrics. So I'll go through the policy change recommendations a little bit more in depth throughout the presentation, but just at a high level, I'll walk you through some of the main points that I think is really important for council and taxpayers to understand. So we really need to achieve sustainable annual funding contributions through an infrastructure levy, as well as a combination of investment income returns. We want to be able to utilize target or minimum reserve balances to guide annual spending instead of the 90% spending caps that are currently in place. So the current policy stipulates that for asset management, strategic initiatives, and town-funded growth, we can't actually budget to spend more than 90% of the revenue that's coming in. And so we're recommending a little change from that perspective. And we really want to look to balance budget to require reserve balances. And what that means specifically is looking at least the first 4 years of the long-range capital forecast, and we want to make sure that it is fully funded. And in order to do so, as Christopher already talked about, we are going to need to increase the town's debt limits. And then one of the other things that we're looking to do is to reallocate proceeds on the sale of property to strategic initiatives. So right now it's going to the CIP Development Reserve, and I'll go into that more in depth throughout the presentation. So in order to achieve all the recommendations that we are putting forward, there's going to need to be some adjustments to the funding allocation. And we're really going to need to decrease the reliance on external funding for asset management needs. And so when we say external funding, we're talking about Casino Ajax and Alexicon revenues that we don't really have control over. And as we've seen over the last number of years, they've gone down quite a bit.
We're going to pause for a minute. I'm just getting notes that we lost the presentation. Council, can you nod? Is that correct? You guys do not see a presentation? Nod if you do not. No. Okay. Can we double check?
Share screen again.
Can you share your screen again?
Yeah, sorry about that. Can you see it now?
Yeah, we were good now. Thank you.
Oh, okay. I promise I didn't touch anything.
No one's blaming. We're all good. Go ahead.
I did notice something was different. Okay, so given that there's a decreased reliance on external funding, we really need to start to rely on long-term investment returns for funding the asset management and the town fund portion of growth reserves. One other aspect that we are recommending a change to is so the CCBF, which is the Canada Community Building Fund, it has since been rebranded to Building Community Strong Fund - Community Stream. I know that's quite a mouthful, but we're recommending that be split between the asset management and the gross reserves to support housing, which is a new directive from the AMO. Okay, so when we ran the numbers through the FSP, it was very clear that there was insufficient funding for capital needs over the long term. Like I mentioned, that was really driven by the reduction in Casino Ajax and Alexicon revenues. And given that, it resulted in large draws on reserves, which really limited the ability for the town to leverage its investment income. And therefore, there was a high reliance on tax-funded debt for growth-related capital needs. So we've kind of broken this presentation down into 3 different segments. We'll start out with asset management, and we'll go through the policy framework changes that we're recommending. So the council-approved asset management plan did identify a total 10-year spend of approximately $260 million to meet the approved levels of service. And so, as I mentioned before, instead of the spending caps, the 90% spending caps that are currently in place per policy, what we're really recommending is the annual budget spending guidelines for asset management related projects should be tied to the AMP, given that's what council has approved from an approved level of service standpoint. And so what that means, sorry, is I think my present, okay. I think there's a delay in the, I did change it, but it didn't go right off the bat. Okay. So average annual spend for the 10-year long-range capital forecast by service area should not exceed the average annual 10-year renewal need of $26 million per year. I'll wait for the screen to catch up because I just changed it, but I don't think it's catching up per my speaking notes.
Don't worry about your slides if they're not catching up. Go ahead and keep. We have the presentation as well.
Okay, all right. So I'm on the asset management funding versus needs slide for those of you that have the slide deck in front of you. So really what we wanted to communicate as part of this slide is that there is an impact that will be had based on what council's funding decisions are to deliver the approved levels of service. So if you look at the graph to the right, the blue line, that is based on a 2% infrastructure levy versus the gray line is no infrastructure levy. So you can see from the gray line, it is basically going down to almost $0 in terms of asset management reserve funds, which is not sustainable. So one of the recommendations that we are bringing forward, okay, there it is. So one of the recommendations that we're bringing forward is that the uncommitted asset management reserve balance should not drop below 2 years of average annual spending as forecasted in the town's asset management plan, which is approximately $52 million. So if you look at the asset management reserve funding, the table to the right, yep, there we go. Okay, so as you can see, we are really relying on, we don't want to rely on the Casino Ajax and Alexicon revenues to fund asset management, just given how important that is. There's not a lot of flexibility given the approved levels of service. So we want to reallocate some of that funding when it comes to fruition to fund strategic initiatives as well as town funded growth. We're looking to allocate approximately 50% of the CCBF revenues to growth projects. And then it's really important to keep in mind, we're going to start budgeting in our operating budget, investment returns, equity investment returns. But the model does assume a fairly conservative return of about 5% per year. But you need to keep in mind that if reserve balances get drawn down, there's not going to be those returns, just given the fact that we can't invest as much as we would like. So it's very important to keep reserve balances at a healthy amount. So next, I'll go through the town funded capital growth and the policy framework there. So I think one of the most important things to note, even if we are reallocating some of the 50% of the CCBF, as well as equity returns to fund town funded capital growth, we still are quite a bit short of what the needs are that were identified in the DC background study. So you can look at the proposed funding of about 5.7 million, which is on the far right corner of the slide. But when we looked at what was identified per the DC background study in the model, that equated to about $10.4 million on average per year. And so if we were to be able to afford that, debt is going to be required to maintain existing reserve balances where they're currently at. So one of the things that we did want to just throw out there is that we could consider allocating a percentage of assessment growth or increasing annual budget transfers to cover growth-related needs and any potential DC or CBC debt-related collection shortfalls. And so what we wanted to show here is based on the model, new debt to finance the town's portion of capital growth over the next 10 years, we're forecasting about $67 million in tax-funded debt. So that's the town-funded portion of growth. And then an additional $285 million in DC-funded debt. And so if you look at that chart on the right-hand side, you can see that Currently, all municipalities, the debt limit is 25% of own source revenues. That's the provincial limit. The current policy states that we cannot exceed 7.5% of our own source revenues, and that's the red line that you see there. And as you can see, by 2030, we are exceeding that. So given the needs that we have forecasted over the next 10 years, one of the recommendations is to increase the town's own debt limit from 7.5% to 15%, while restricting the amount of tax-supported debt to no more than 5%, which it stays below the 5% amount over the 10 years. And finally, we'll look at the strategic initiatives policy framework. So the annual contribution for strategic initiatives, what we are recommending is that it should be greater than or equal to the 4-year average annual need. And when we look at the model, that's about $1.5 million per year. And one of the reasons we're recommending this is ensuring that strategic initiatives needs are fully costed and fully funded will improve the town's ability to advance the priorities outlined in the strategic plan. So it does give some flexibility to council and to town staff. If we don't need to have as robust a strategic initiative or strategic plan framework, we could potentially reallocate some of that funding to growth or asset management as needed. Also, as part of this report, we are recommending an amendment to the sale and disposition of land bylaw. So currently, the bylaw states that all net proceeds from the sale and disposition of land shall be allocated to the CIP Development Improvement Reserve, and it can only fund capital projects within the downtown CIP area. So what we are recommending as part of the FSP report is that that bylaw gets amended so that all future proceeds from disposition of land can be allocated to the Strategic Initiatives Reserve. The reason that we are recommending that is it will provide greater flexibility and options when deciding how funding for different strategic initiatives will be allocated. I'm not going to go through these couple slides in detail, but really what we just wanted to show council and the public is, based on the assumptions in the model, this is where the reserve balances would be as of today versus at the end of the 10 years based on what we know. And I'll go through some of the key takeaways. So I think it's already been said, but I think it's really important to just mention that the town is in a strong financial position. We have a well-established policy framework, and we will continue to actively monitor and manage the evolving external revenues and investment variability throughout the forecast. Capital pressures do require increased use of debt to fund growth-related assets. We're going to need to increase our internal debt limits, and that is very comparable, as Hemson showed in their presentation, of what other municipalities are doing. Debt ratios need to be managed to make sure that we're in a sound financial position. Growth projects do need to be prioritized. So, some of the road projects and our core assets, there's not a lot of flexibility there, but yeah, maybe other areas we need to think about what we're going to spend our money on. Current contributions to asset management reserves are insufficient to meet the renewal needs currently as approved by council. So maintaining the infrastructure levy is going to be very important moving forward. In terms of next steps, so the updated sale and disposition of land bylaw will be approved on the May 19th council meeting. So in terms of the attachments to the report, you'll see there's a lot of adjustments to the policies and everything. And so there is going to be some dissolution of some of the reserves that are currently active right now. And so we will communicate that through the 2026 operating results and year-end reserve allocation report, which will come to council in spring of 2027. And council will receive periodic reporting on the progress made towards reaching FSP goals with a more fulsome report in 2030 or earlier if warranted. And yeah, with that, thank you very much, members of council, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. I think some of you may have questions for the consultant. Some of you may have questions for staff. Just when you ask your question, please let us know where you're directing it. We'll start with Regional Councillor Crawford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your presentation, both of you. My question, I believe, will be more to the consultant. On your page, your presentation, page 8, you had comparable mid-range asset management contributions. So there's quite a jump from Whitby, Milton, and Oakville. Can you tell me what are those municipalities specifically doing? Do they have an infrastructure levy?
Yep, Mr. Marabella.
Thanks, Councillor. That's a good question. I mean, I guess part of it can be explained like they do have their contributions to reserve built in. When you look at one like relative to the replacement value, the one on the far right, it is really dependent also on the valuation of the infrastructure that's at least public from the asset management plan. So there is going to be variety in terms of the municipalities just in the comparables in that sense. So it's not as much as we try to make it an apples to apples comparison. The valuation of each municipality's infrastructure is still, and this graph is still subject to that. And then the contributions per capita, they do jump up, and you get a place like Oakville, just the size of the municipality might be a bit different. Obviously the economy of scale of the infrastructure that they've got and their budget and what they've worked into it. There are some nuances that aren't always reflected in a graph like this, and it could be also the municipality's debt levels and also where they are on their asset life cycle venture, whether their assets are relatively new or if they're a lot older. One might need to be contributing a lot more now if they've got bigger infrastructure requirements in the near future. So those are some of the particulars that don't always reflect in this. But when you look at from a conceptual perspective that the town is kind of in the mid-range, it does seem to suggest that you are doing your part, at least in kind of investing in your infrastructure. But obviously there's a continued way to go as we kind of move forward and kind of keep that pace going forward into the future.
So not a fair comparator, in other words.
It's fair. There's differences within each municipality, and whether that's in Ajax or Oakville or Milton, there are obviously nuances within each community that we have to be cognizant of.
So I don't know if you can answer this question or if I can't remember his name, the other fellow there. How many municipalities in Durham Region currently have an asset management plan, or sorry, not asset, the infrastructure levy?
So through the chair, I can't give you an exact number offhand, but I do know that there are certainly a number of them that do have it.
In Durham Region?
In Durham Region, yeah. Yeah, and ones that have just recently introduced them as well in Durham. I have to get back to you on the specifics of which communities have or don't have, but I do know that there are communities obviously in Durham that do have an infrastructure levy in place.
Okay. One other. Okay, I'll let somebody else have a chance now.
Just one moment. Director Mepham joined the conversation. Do you have that answer regarding the number of Durham municipalities that have the fee?
I don't have the exact answer on me right now, but I can definitely circulate it. We did do an analysis. I know there's at least two or three, but I can circulate that.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Regional Councillor Crawford. Next, we have Mayor Collier. Mayor Collier?
Thank you, Chair. I'll just go through my notes here and try and refer to the right people. Just with the casino revenues and the Alexicon, I would prefer to not include those at all. I think those are so precarious. I don't expect we'll see anything from Lexicon for probably close to a decade. And the casino, I mean, who knows? That could go next year for all I know. It just seems to be constantly declining. how much difference to the plan would it make if we did not put those in at all?
Through the chair, I can take that question. So right now in the plan, I think we have about $3.2 million in casino Ajax revenue. So that would be a reduction of 3.2 million. Now we've allocated the casino Ajax revenue split to growth and strategic initiatives. So that does not impact, or the plan is that this revenue will no longer impact the asset management plan, but is more indirect revenue that will help bring forward either a strategic initiative or the growth related plan, which can be funded by debt in the absence of those revenues. But we no longer want to propose relying on that revenue to fund asset management.
Right, and that's pretty much what I'm saying. I mean, I was around when the FSP first came into effect, I think 2007. It's worked well for us, but obviously we need to pivot and modify based on current. And don't get me wrong, I hope the slots revenues continue indefinitely, but I just don't want another surprise like what happened when we lost our Alexicon dividends and interest last year. So just thank you for that reassurance. I want to talk about the investment policy because we talk about this a little bit, and I see staff starting to use some of the investments for this year. We used a little bit for operational, but in the plan, you're talking about a conservative 5%. I think we know that our combined long-term and short-term rate of return is just in the last 3 years somewhere closer to 14%. I think, and I've said this before, setting this at such a low amount, fine. But if we're going to do that, I think we should have the 5% going in to the growth or the infrastructure and the strategic initiatives or wherever it's supposed to go, and the balance go into a separate reserve. We're going to have some negative years. We've been lucky so far, but we're going to have some negative years. And I don't want us to have to, I would prefer to have sort of like a tax rate stabilization fund with the extra than have to suddenly go out and try and make it up from taxes if we have a negative year. Can you speak to that, please?
Yes, through the chair to Mayor Collier. So the plan is to include a 5% conservative estimate, but we have the discretion to allocate anything over and above that through our year-end allocation report. We could potentially allocate that to a stabilization reserve if that is the desire of council, or we can then top up any other reserve at that point. It is really the point of not including a higher return is that there will be years that are positive and there will be years, as you said, that will be negative. So we want to be conservative. We want to utilize some of that investment income, but still have that ability to direct where that surplus could go in any given year.
So what would be your thoughts if I directed or if council directed that anything above the 5% go to a, whatever you want to call it, tax rate stabilization or investment surplus reserve, and we put a cap to that reserve of say $3 or $5 million, and anything above that at the end of the day gets reallocated? What effect would that have, and would you be supportive of something like that?
Through the chair, we could definitely take a look at doing that. We have currently in our stabilization reserve a requirement to fund or to save a minimum of 5% of total own source revenue that we collect in a year, with a cap of 15%. We're always at the lower end of that 5% mark. So that could definitely be something we take a look at, and we bump up that reserve with that in mind, and we can build that into the policy. We can take a look at that.
Okay, I may give that, bring that as an amendment. You've set the 5%, or sorry, the debt, maximum debt at 5%. What is that in dollar value? Because we're talking about having a linear 26 million per year for the next 10-year capital program.
So the 5%, I don't have the
or so.
I don't have the exact dollar value because that's based on payments. So the 25% cap or the 5% limit that's in our policy would be based on the annual payment. And the payment, of course, varies depending on whether it's a 5-year, 10-year, 15, 20-year debenture. So we would have to take a look at approximately what that means as far as a debt limit. But I can definitely get back to you on that.
Well, let me.
I'll see if I can find it.
We're proposing through this new revised FSP a $26 million a year linear capital budget. And if we're capping our debt to 5%, does that mean we could only debenture 10 million of the 26 million, for instance?
I will get back to you on numbers, but it would be a certain percentage. And now I will have to caution that the debentures that were forecasted in this presentation were the debentures primarily from our growth related reserves, so funding our growth assets. If we are going to continue to continuously fund the capital asset projects, whether it's building or vehicles and equipment, that will use up a little bit more of that room quicker.
Where I'm getting the 10 million from is when you talk about doubling our debt ceiling from 7.5% to 15%. If you look at the chart, it looks like 15% is about 32 million. So I just assumed 5% was about 10.
In annual debt payments, yes.
Annual debt payments, okay.
In annual debt payments, yeah. So you're correct. Well, it would be, so the 5%, yes, would be around the 10 to 12 million in annual debt payments.
Okay, and I'm not concerned about incurring some debt. I think that's actually a good idea. We have our debenture policy for vehicles with longer lifespans of 8 years and whichever else. We're going to have 17,000 new homes coming online over the next 15 years or so. I think the taxes from that are going to more than be able to handle the debt payments. So I'm not concerned about that. On the recommendations, can you give me an example of what, quote, more stable source of revenue are? Are you just referring to property taxes when you talk about more stable sources?
Okay, so through the chair, when we speak about that with respect to the capital reserves, that comment is more about relying less on external revenue, so the casino, the Alexicon revenues to fund those needs that we do have, and make those, yes, more stable funding from the tax base rather, and from a conservative investment allocation rather than external revenues and subject to fluctuations.
Okay. I already talked about the investment piece. To the spending caps, and I'm not a big supporter of removing the spending caps. I know I wasn't really supportive of increasing it to the 90%, because that's what made sure under the old FSP that our reserves grew each year by that delta from what we put into the spending cap. At the same time, having the new sort of linear model doesn't take into account the investment growth over the 5%. I feel like they contradict each other a little bit. Can you speak to that? I would prefer to still see a spending cap in there, a linear 26 million or 60%, whichever is less, for instance.
So through the development of the policies, our caps are based on our reserve balances now, right? So we, instead of limiting ourselves to the revenues coming into the reserves every year, the known revenues or anticipated revenues, we have been conservative in putting investment income in there, which we previously did not include as part of our capital planning. It was also always an after the fact contribution to reserves, whereas now we are proactively putting that in so that it's both taxpayer funding as well as the investment income funding our capital. Yes, we will have to draw down on our reserves over the first few years until the infrastructure levy catches up, or if we have additional investment revenues that we do contribute to those reserves, that will help balance out those the ebbs and flows over the years. I'm not sure if that answers your question, but
kind of. Well, I'm going to be I'm going to be meeting with you to discuss the investment strategy, as you know, at a later date anyway. And part of this works together. So we can talk about those other things after. I want to talk about the change of reserve from the CIP for the sale of buildings to the strategic initiatives, which I absolutely support. I just wonder how much is in that CIP reserve right now.
Through the chair, I have that in front of me. I think it's about 8 million, but let me just double check.
Okay, so
yes, we do have about 8.5 million.
Significant amount. So if we're going forward under the new FSP, going to be putting any sale of capital assets, I guess, buildings, into this new strategic initiatives reserve, why aren't we transferring the $8 million balance is already in there as well? Is that already allocated?
Through the chair, no, the full amount is not allocated. We can take a look at the contributions that were made to that reserve with respect specifically to the CIP, and we believe those will have to stay in there. And as part of our reserve review at the end of 2026, we can take a look at all the funding that was contributed, and the funding that was not contributed specifically to the downtown CIP. We can make a recommendation to see if we can move that out.
Okay, that would be my recommendation, because I know we sold the pavilion last year. That went in there, and I don't think that that was meant to go towards CIP projects since we wrapped up the CIPs. So I think that should go over as well. And finally, I just want to talk a little bit about assessment growth, because in the report on page 65, it talks about key finding number 4, identified a funding gap and town funded consideration should be given to additional contributions, such as allocating a percentage of annual assessment growth. So what percentage are you considering? I would consider, well, what percentage have you used so far? Because I would recommend use 1%, and anything over and above 1% would be going to asset.
So through the chair, we haven't identified any specific percentage. This was a recommendation for council's consideration as to whether some of the assessment growth could be allocated more towards the growth related reserves rather than asset management. So asset management contributions are forecasted to be generated through the infrastructure levy, whereas growth reserves do not currently have a sustainable funding source that would match the needs that are required over the next 10 years. So this was an additional a recommendation for consideration and based on best practices from other municipalities that we've reviewed with Hemson.
Well, I agree with it. Given the situation we're in and knowing the pressure on our reserves, I think we need to make some of these tough choices. Right now, if I'm correct, we use the assessment growth to reduce the tax impact.
That is correct.
And I mean, that's a nice short-term solution, but it's not going to help us long-term. So I would suggest that that does get implemented. And as I said, make it, if you want to use a percentage to reduce the tax impact, that's fine, but I suggest you cap it at, say, a 1% or 0.75%, and put anything above and beyond into the asset management would be my suggestion, or the asset, whatever you call it, reserve. Is that,
Thank you.
is that kind of what you're thinking of?
It does sound very plausible. I think that'll be up to the next mayor, next council to identify how much from the budget will be directed to the will be used from assessment growth.
Okay, so you don't think it's a good idea to hardwire this into the FSP? You want it to remain as a council decision each year?
I will take my direction from council as a whole. So if that is, I don't know if that's a separate motion or how we go about that, but I will take the direction from council.
Thank you for the presentation. Thank you for answering my questions, and thank you for your leniency on the time, Chair.
My pleasure. Next, we have, for the first time, Councillor Henry.
Thank you, Chair. So I was just making some notes here, some great questions here. With regards to 6.1, and the report references a 2% levy, I'm noticing. So I wanted to ask about that because back in December at our budget meeting, I thought there was a motion brought forward by Regional Councillor Lee with regards to a reduction from a 2% infrastructure levy to 1%. Is that the same infrastructure levy we're referring to in this report?
Through the chair to Councillor Henry, yes, it is. We did, when we updated the 2026 FSP, we did reduce the 2026 capital infrastructure levy to the 1%, but through the review that was prepared by Hemson and our subsequent review, a 2% capital infrastructure levy is what is required to maintain our asset, our reserve balances for asset management up to the sustainable levels they need to be at in order to fund all of the required maintenance work in the long term. So it is still a need, even though it was reduced to 1%. It is a requirement in order to meet the established levels of service, and then start growing our reserves after the 10-year time frame.
So just to clarify, the motion did go through as it was intended in December. The levy has been dropped. There's no policies, updates, or anything needed to make that happen. It has happened, correct?
That is correct.
Yes. But the information in slide 8 and subsequent slides that I'm looking at, 9 and so on, refers to the 2%. So we're stating that if we want to maintain what we have been, we're going to need to be at the 2%, not the 1%. Yes? Like how is that affecting? Yes?
That is correct. It is a new recommendation through the review of this, the financial sustainability plan, that we maintain the 2% infrastructure levy.
So where does that leave us now? Is there a recommendation in this report to put that back up to what it was? Because it's just been taken down.
So through the chair, the infrastructure levy has never been entrenched in policy. It is something that we know is required and is subject to approval on an annual basis by the mayor and council at budget time. This plan is provided to provide a guidance to council to make those decisions, but nothing. I mean, if you would like a 2% infrastructure levy built into this plan, we can certainly include it directly in policy. It has not been practiced in the past, but it is the recommended course of action.
So does the report change if you use the guise of a 1% levy? Like, how much would it have changed? How much difference would we have seen here? Because the information is based off 2%.
That is correct. So through the chair, on one of the slides that Kevin presented, I'm just trying to find the number here. He did go through the impacts on our asset management reserves if we had a 2%, a 1%, and a 0% infrastructure levy. If we put in no levy, he did mention we are going down to reserve balances of 0, which is not sustainable. We do not want to be at that stage. And the 1% infrastructure levy brought us mid range. So our reserve balances would decrease over time. And again, with reduced reserve balances, that means we have less money to invest. Therefore, there will be an increased reliance on the tax base as well to fund the asset management plan in the long run.
Which means taxes go up.
Correct.
Sorry, Councillor Henry, these are great questions. Director Methven, where's that slide you're referencing on the 1%, 2%?
It was slide 9 in
The town portion.
in the town's presentation.
Yep, okay, thank you. Just staff wants to put that up. Go ahead, Councillor Henry, thank you.
Sorry, so you're saying that if we have a 1% levy over time, we will have to increase taxes?
Well, what will happen?
Yes.
I am saying that we will likely have to increase taxes in the long run because we will have lower reserve balances to invest, meaning lower returns to help us offset the tax rate, or sorry, the capital levy. And our reserve balances, as you see on that slide there, would go from approximately, close to $100 million in the $90 million range, all the way to just about $60 million. So, and that's with the 1% infrastructure levy. if we applied a 2% infrastructure levy, we would, our balances would go down in the near term as we deal with our asset management needs, as we address those higher risk capital projects. But with the 2% infrastructure levy and the investment income that we earn on our reserves, it would bring it back up over time so that we can start saving for future needs as well.
So what year are we looking at that we'd have to increase taxes in order to replace the 1% infrastructure levy that would be lost? And what year?
Well, I would think we would have to take a look at that, but the 2% infrastructure levy is a levy as well. Like it is, we can't avoid tax increases when it comes to dealing with our asset management. They are assets we need to maintain and manage and replace on a cyclical basis. So if we,
I understand that, but I guess I'm trying to figure out which is the worst of the two. Is we take away the 1% now, and what does that look like for a tax increase? Like at what year and what percentage? Is it better to keep the 1% now and then we don't have a 3% increase later, or do we take away the 1% now and have an additional 3%? Like, what are we looking at here? What's the percentage? Is it apples to apples, 1% to 1%? Give me some guidance here, please.
To Councillor Henry, I mean, tax increases, like I said, to deal with asset management, I can't give you numbers on, like, the more you can do upfront, the better, as you can invest those funds or spend them on the needs that are in front of us. Deferring capital projects also cost us money. So if we don't do the right maintenance work at the right time, in all likelihood, that will end up costing more from an asset replacement in the future as well. So I think, the plan was put before council today, puts forward a sustainable plan that we can build upon. So to have that 2% infrastructure levy every year is probably better than doing nothing for a number of years and then having to increase taxes by 7, 8, 9, 10% in a year that we may really need those funds. So I think we're trying to be, part of it is to have some sort of predictability and sustainability long term, and that's what we're proposing.
Okay, so these reports here today, are they to receive for information only?
No, they are for approval, and the reason we are asking for your approval is so that the 2027 budget can be built using this framework. The reason we did not put any numbers in the policies is that those are up to council when budget comes before you in 2027, so that you can make those decisions. But the guidance that is provided by this document is really important so that those fiscal decisions can be made for the taxpayers in the long run.
So if we accept this report as is now, does the infrastructure levy automatically increase back by the 1%? Or is there a motion required to do so?
There is no immediate impact on the infrastructure levy. What we would build into the budget would be 2%, and then if council were to not agree with that, then that can be amended at a future date. And we would work with the mayor post-election to develop that as part of the budget.
So right now, if nothing is done and this council accepts the report as is, 2026 goes with a 1% infrastructure levy, and you folks go away and plan for a 2% infrastructure levy for the future, accepting this report as is, correct?
That is correct. The budget for this year has been adopted, so there's no changes to that budget at all.
Okay.
Right, so there is the 1% infrastructure levy that's been set by council when the budget was adopted.
Okay, so I'm going to leave my questions here for now, and depending on the outcome of this meeting, yourself and I'd like to schedule a follow-up meeting. Thank you very much for all your answers.
Thank you. For the first time, Councillor Bauer. Wait,
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Lee. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the presentations. Excellent information. And thank you to my colleagues for asking some really great questions. So on the positive side, congratulations to the town for creating this policy in 2013, because it seems to have really formed a strong foundation for us to make decisions. And also for the change to on the town staff report about the fully funded budgets for current year and the 4 following years of long range forecast. I love that it will be fully funded. I think that's a really positive, just even it's an assurance to see that we can budget these things. So I just want to confirm. So all of this data, I know we're talking about reserve funds, capital programs, debt financing. This is all info that is based currently on our existing levels of service throughout the town, right?
So through the chair, yes, the asset management plan is reflected in these studies based on what was approved by council. I will note though that the framework for the FSP with respect to growth was built using 100% of all the assets that are going to be built in our DC background study, right? So council does have some discretion as to the timing of those projects, and as Andrew and Christopher alluded to, should growth not materialize as quickly, or if it goes faster, there is some discretion in advancing projects or moving them out. So yes, the growth piece is more based on that long-term growth vision for the town, but the rest of it is based on approved levels of service that council made back in May of last year.
Thank you very much, Acting Director Metham. So then my question, and I think this is probably a crazy question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Was there scenario testing done for, the level of service is something that council does have control over. Do these numbers, does it have huge impact? Like I know if we were to look at a reduction of service levels.
Are you speaking with respect to asset management or other types of service levels, like operating budget? What type of service?
Right.
levels?
So for example, I know in recent years there was, and correct me if I'm wrong, we looked at the condition of road to set the service level of when certain repair works were done. And I think we actually made an adjustment, and I believe it was an adjustment down. So is that something that would be a realistic, and I'm just thinking from the perspective of like, these are huge numbers we're talking about and huge need for more revenues based on what we are delivering now. And we often hear, well, it's either a choice of raising taxes or lowering service. So I'm just curious, is that exercise something that would be a logical or practical or even realistic exercise to think about?
So through the chair to Councillor Bauer, my understanding is that exercise has been done. When the asset management plan was presented to council, operations staff and finance took a look at the long-term outlook of what asset management activities were needed to replace our roads and do the ongoing maintenance. And if you recall, at that time, we did lower levels of service so to bring some affordability to the required activities that would have to be done on our roads. I don't believe, and I can hand it over to Director Meredith if he wants to add anything, but I don't believe that staff would recommend further reducing the levels of service, because at that point, we're at a point where if we reduce them any further, the maintenance costs will go up, meaning our operating budget costs may go up. Deferring assets, the replacement of assets any longer, will cost more than actually reinvesting and maintaining our assets at this point.
Yes, no, thank you for that answer. Yeah, I appreciate that answer, because And I understand that answer, because although it sounds like maybe we could do that kind of reduction, you know, if you don't take care of things, it costs more in the long term for reparation, right? So I appreciate that answer. No, thank you for that. If any other director wanted to add to that, Director Meredith, I'm happy to listen to it, but I'm satisfied with your answer. And the other question was, sorry, go ahead. I saw a screen flash up there. Was that you, Director?
That was me, Councillor Bauer. Please keep going.
Okay, thank you. And then the other question about debt financing was to increase the town's debt limit from up to 15% from the current 7.5 with regular review of debt levels, which of course we know are needed. So I just wanted to understand, how did we pick 15? Is that an arbitrary number? Is that tested against something?
So through the chair to Councillor Bauer, we did take a look at comparable municipalities, and 15% is a very common and average debt limit that is self-imposed across municipalities. Some are higher, some are lower, and we definitely do not want to be at the maximum 25%. We do want to keep debt reasonable, and also keep in mind the debt split between you know, what is tax funded versus what is required to deal with our growth related assets.
Okay, thank you very much. I think pretty much I have all the other information that I was looking for. Thank you very much. Those are my questions, Chair Lee.
Thank you. For the second round, Councillor Taylor-Moore.
Thank you. I think I'm good. My questions have been answered. Just very quickly on the 2% infrastructure levy, my question was going to be, how critical is that? Obviously, Director Meffam, it is very critical for this. It possibly is the most critical for the financial health of this whole system. Would you agree with that statement?
Yes, 100%.
Okay, something we will have to remember in the future. Thank you so much, Chair, for letting me back in for the second time.
Thank you. Regional Councillor Crawford, a second time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just curious to the consultant. Were you aware that our infrastructure levy was 1%?
I may add to that. Sorry, the consultants did their work based on 2025 data, and at the time it was not 1%, it was 2% at the time.
Okay. So this whole report was done based on what they knew at the time, not what was done at the budget time.
In 2025. So the Hemson report is based.
Serious concerns about this consultant. Okay, thank you. I appreciate you clearing that up.
Thank you so much, everybody. Oh, Councillor Henry for a second time.
Hi, thank you. Knowing that information, that the consultant was basing it off the 2% prior, and without going into a whole thing where we're causing a huge cost expense here, what's the likelihood of getting an updated report based off the 1%?
Through the chair to Councillor Henry, staff have modeled what it would be like with the 1%. We will not be asking our consultants to update all of their data with the 1%. Their engagement has pretty much come to a close, but we have all the model that was provided to us, and we can do that analysis in-house.
Excellent. When can we as a council expect to receive that updated information?
Through the chair, what exactly are you looking for as to the impacts of the 1%? Because we did show you the impacts on that chart. Is there anything more that you're looking for?
Well, I just asked about if the whole report was modeled after 1% instead of 2%, and you said you could do that in-house. So I don't know what further information you could do in-house. What does that look like? And would we be...
Let me help you out here, because that graph, if I'm reading the director graph correctly, maps out the 1% and 2% scenarios. So there's no kind of, you can follow that forecasting from that graph.
Thank you. So is there any further, I guess what I'm trying to ask is, had there been a 1% basis to go off of, would there have been any additional information that was not provided in this report that staff could in-house give us?
We could take a look back at that. There would be slight additional information, but we can take that back and take a look at what we can do and provide any additional data that we feel was not included as part of this report.
Thank you. And do we need a motion for that, or is that something you can just do? And when could we look at receiving that?
I would prefer to do it through a motion if possible, and we could probably look at that, we could try for June, if not, it might be September.
So can I bring that motion forward now at this time, clerks?
A motion is always in order, but right now we're only at the presentation. I haven't brought forth the recommendations yet. So, Councillor Henry, now on that note, why don't we put a hold for now and let me bring forth the recommendations. So we have report number FIN-2026-11. The recommendation is 1, the council receive for information the financial sustainability plan final report as prepared by Hemson Consulting Limited for the Town of Ajax. 2, the following updated policies included as ATT-4 to ATT-8 be approved, and lists A through E. 3, that the draft procedure for sale and disposition of land bylaw attached as ATT-9 be brought forward to the May 19, 2026 council meeting for consideration. And 4, that the Director of Finance be authorized to make administrative changes to the policies identified under 120 Financial Stability Plan to align with the goals stated in this report. Let us start with the mover. Can I get a move for this, please? Mayor Collier, do you want to move this? Okay, I see Mayor Collier moved. Now, as part of this, Councillor Henry, you had an amendment first. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the amendment would be to have what we just discussed, any further information that's missing from this report based off the 1% levy versus the 2. However, that needs to be worded by clerks.
Just give me a moment, looking at clerks to see if they've. One moment. We're just typing it out. Are you going to show it on screen? And it's coming on screen for you all. Secondary required or no? No. Okay.
I'm going to ask that you
required?
biggie
Go ahead.
size that because I cannot see it. Can you enlarge that, please? Thank you.
Okay.
Mercy.
Moved by Councillor Henry that the motion be amended to add the following: the staff be directed to provide council with further information based on the 1% instead of 2% levy. Is that okay for wording, Councillor Henry?
Yes. I
Okay.
think the director understands what I'm looking for.
Did you want to give time on that? The director's asked for as late as September. Are you okay with that time frame?
I'd like to allow the director the time needed.
Okay, so by
That's
the
fine.
September, the appropriate standing committee in September 2026,
Mhm.
GTC. Okay. Any questions, comments, concerns from council? Mayor Collier, I'm gonna. Oh, sorry. CEO Baker's joined. CEO Baker, do you want to comment on this?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm just confused as to what information staff would be looking to bring forward, and I want to make sure that Acting Director Metham she knows what she's going to be trying to bring forward. Because I, as you have noted, Mr. Chair, the graph is there. You can see that there's a difference between the 2% and the 1%. It's projected out. I don't really know what else we would be bringing forward. And to be clear, as we talked about already, the FSP is a financial. It's a principled report. So these are recommendations from the consultant, from staff, about what we believe should be brought forward for council's consideration regarding the infrastructure levy in the budget. And at that time, council can ask questions. Then they can ask for numbers then as to how it would affect that year's budget, all that kind of stuff, and make their decision based on that year's budget. But what this would simply do is it would direct staff that if approved, that they're going to come forward with their recommended 2%, and then council could debate it at that time. But as far as this motion goes, I'm really not clear as to what we're expected to bring back.
Councillor Henry, so
Yes.
as you know, I mean, it's always appropriate to amend. What information, is there any kind of specific information you are looking for that the graph does not address? Because again, the consultant used the information, they mapped out a 1% and 2% option and a 0, I believe. And so I guess staff is looking for that clarification of what more are we looking for exactly? The consultants had the information to map it out. So I think your concern is that they were not working off that information. Am I phrasing that correctly for you or no?
Yes, they were not working off the correct information, and thus, although a graph was provided, it could have changed other things in the report. And staff has already indicated that they are in the position to handle any adjustments that would have been needed in the report with the information given. So I'm just asking to make sure that we take a once over on this and that there's clarity on it. I don't think that's too much to ask. I'm not putting pressure on staff in any way to do it in a I need this tomorrow timeline. Sorry,
No,
Director, you have a
no,
question. I
Senor.
see Director's hand up.
Yes, through the chair, I do want to.
Go ahead.
Am I able to speak? Through the chair, I do want to make a correction that the consultant did have the correct information when they did the analysis. So the 2% infrastructure levies that were approved until 2025 and the anticipated infrastructure levies going into the future, that is an estimate that is provided. And I would not say that they had incorrect information. The analysis is sound, and you won't see much changing from those base numbers. It's an infrastructure levy is approved on an annual basis through the budgeting process, and council does have discretion to increase or decrease those on an annual basis at this point. But
Sorry, I'm confused. The question that Regional Councillor Crawford asked, were they aware of this reduction in the levy to 1%? I thought you said they were not.
Their modeling was based on 2025 data. So yes, we did not. They did not include a 1% infrastructure levy going forward in their modeling. They had the 2% infrastructure levy, which is still what is being recommended today in the staff recommended plan after we made that change for the 2026 levy.
So, Councillor Henry, again, this is a fine, but I guess what staff is trying to address is that all this information you're asking for is there. Any sort of update will not drastically present you any new information that is not in the current report.
So sorry, when I
We're happy
asked a
to-
minute ago about the about having the consultant adjust the report accordingly, knowing of the 1%, I was told that all the information that the staff, that the consultant, we weren't going to retain them any further, and this was something that staff could do. That led me to believe that there was information that could or would have been changed had they had that update. So is that not the case?
It's could have been a miscommunication on our part of just understanding the question as asked. I think right now the director's giving you the most clear question. So again, if you want, we can put this to a vote if you want. But again, what we're saying right now in this meeting is you will not get any substantially different information than the report provided and the graph provided, which offered a 2%, 1%, and 0% option.
Okay, so sorry, Director, that is correct, right?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay, I just want clarification on that before proceeding. Then
So
no
how do you want to
motion
proceed
is
then?
required. Then no motion is required. I just wanted, the way that it was worded did not lead me to believe that conclusion.
Understood. And we're sorry
Thank
for
you.
that miscommunication. We're all on the same page now. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, Mayor Collier, you were on the list. I'm assuming, go ahead.
Thank you. Councilor Henry in the last 10 minutes. I have the minutes I've sent to the clerk.
Okay, yeah, we're hearing some feedback from you, but I believe you said you sent a motion to the clerk. Clerk, do we have that on, can we put that on the screen?
I don't think the feedback from me.
I think it is, but not to Jacques Hughes. Okay, council, can we all see the amendment provided by the mayor? Obviously, this is moved by himself. Those just 2 through 7, correct?
I think I only sent 2 through 4, but it's been revised a little bit by the clerk. Let me just read it
Okay.
quickly.
Go ahead.
Okay, this is follow-up to the questions that I posed to the treasurer and commissioner of finance, and director of finance, and towards the consultant's report and the report in the agenda. And this is asking, and I was trying to get in before Councillor Henry's motion, because this also asks staff to put all this new information in and come back to council with the revised numbers based on some of these amendments. I'll just go through the amendments quickly. First, I talked about the investment reserve being created. So an investment reserve be created and any realized investment revenue in excess of 5% per annum, which is what the report says they're going to conservatively fix it at, be allocated to this reserve on an annual basis up to a reserve balance of $5 million. Once the target has been met, any further revenues be allocated to the asset management reserve going forward. The allocation, and this is very similar to our tax rate stabilization, or whatever that's called now, where we had a cap where in years where there is perhaps a negative growth or a need, you can tap into that reserve, but once the balance is reached, then the rest goes in. Number 3, which probably should be number 2, that the allocation of assessment growth used to reduce the tax impact be capped at 0.75% annually, and the amount above that be allocated to the asset management reserve. As I talked with the treasurer about, we use those funds on an annual basis to reduce the tax impact. They're usually somewhere between 0.5% and 1% lately, so I chose in the middle, 0.75. This will still maintain the relief to the taxpayers as we've been doing in the past by including assessment growth. But once we do start realizing some higher assessment growth, that extra funding will go into the asset management reserve. 4, which should be 3, the staff review the proposal to eliminate the spending caps. This really troubles me, removing spending caps completely. I would propose a revised portion where we still have a spending cap, and I've used 70%. That's variable. I want the treasurer to go back and work with the numbers and report back to council, or the 23.5 million, whichever is less going forward. I think this works to, if we have better growth from reserves going forward, the money is there. If not, then we go with the caps. That any non-allocated balance of the CIP reserve, which is where the sale of our buildings goes, there's 8 million in there now. Whatever is not already allocated to CIPs be transferred over to the Strategic Initiatives Reserve, where the new money is going anyway. And that staff report back to council with the revised FSP and associated policies based on these changes. And this was added, the draft updated procedure sale and disposition of land bylaw attached be brought forward to the June 22nd meeting for consideration. I guess that's based on some of these revisions. Thank you, Chair. I'm open to answer any questions.
Sorry, Regent Nance Crawford, I'm going to get to you just from a clarification point of view to the mayor. Are you removing the staff recommendation 2 completely, which has the updated policies?
That wasn't my intent. What my intent through these amendments was to take these changes and go back and revise them in the policy and then come back to council.
And then come back to council. So you want, in a sense, just I need to clarify for everyone, you want, in a sense, for staff to kind of go through this exercise, present it to council to see if it's something that's we want to adopt. Is that correct?
Well, we have recommendations in the agenda today, Chair, to basically receive the report from the presentation of information and revise these policies. I wasn't able to, in the time, to go through each policy and excerpt where this should go and make that sort of much more in-depth amendment. So I guess I'm sending these to staff and let them put them in where they need to go and then come back. I don't know if that's...
And then come back to us and allow council to make that final decision.
correct based on the new numbers.
Okay.
And at the same time, if there was any discrepancy with the 1% reduction this year and the $1 million that maybe did or did not get put in, that would be corrected at that time as well.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify on wording. Thank you very much. On the amendment, we'll start with Regent Councillor Crawford.
Thank you. That was actually what I was going to ask. Mayor Collier, this is a really good motion, and I like where you're going with it. I was just wondering if it was replacing what the staff's recommendations are. So thank you, Chair Lee, for clearing that up. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, and thank you to Mayor Collier for bringing these forward. I just wanted to friendly question your cap on item number 3. I know you've sort of arrived in the middle of 0.5 and 1. I would like to ask, could it be capped at 1%?
Well,
Instead
Councillor
of
Bauer,
a
I'm going to leave that. I mean, I just chose an arbitrary number. I think when this comes back, we'll be able to look at the numbers and see what the actual impact would be based on this. And then council can decide at that point whether we wanted to revise it. That was my intent. I'm not saying it has to be. I just picked a number in between the 0.5% and the 1%. So, I mean, I think maybe it might be better to do that when this comes back. Just my thought.
Okay. Yep, fair enough. Thank you.
Mayor Collier, just one more question on wording. Did you want this for the June GDC meeting, or is this for the September GDC meeting?
I would prefer, I think, June. Through you to Director Mepham, is that achievable to punch these in and come back in June? Is that enough time?
Through the chair, I believe it is sufficient time. Yes.
Okay, so to the June then. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Okay, clerk has all that language. Looking over clerk, it's captured, including the June date. That is a nod from clerk. I see no more questions from committee. Okay, we will go ahead and start that vote right now. Okay, that passes. We have Mayor Collier again, and I guess on the main motion as amended.
That's right. Just move in the main motion as amended. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any questions, comments, concerns on the main motion as amended? In since it's going to come back to us next month. Looking at the speaker list, there is none, so we will start the vote. Thank you. Just waiting for Regional Councillor Dyes. Okay, that passed. Oh, she did vote. Okay, great. Sorry, we weren't sure if Regional Councillor Dyes had voted. Thank you, everybody. That was exciting. All right, we've now finished presentation 6.1, 6.2. We're now still in presentations. We're at 6.3 OES-2026-10, the ACC Recreation Master Plan Renovation, Concept Plan Approval, Report Contract Award for the detailed design for the ACC Recreation Master Plan Renovation. We have Director Dave Meredith to set the table.
Thank you, Chair. Just really quickly, I'm going to turn it over to Jackson Christian to lead us through the presentation. I don't have much to say in terms of introductory comments, so I'll just turn it over to him.
Awesome. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Dave. Good afternoon, Mayor Collier, members of council, and everyone present today. Just before I begin, I wanted to update that Diamond Smith, who's our consultant lead architect working on this project, we're having some technical difficulty earlier, and I just want to check if they're able to log in now before I share my screen. Just calling out for Marcin if he's able to access his audio controls.
So we're doing a test. Can you hear us?
Good afternoon. Yes, I can hear. Thank you.
Awesome.
We can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Go ahead.
Awesome. With that said, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And through chair, if you can please confirm if you're able to view that.
We're
That's
still
the
waiting. Yes, we
presentation.
can see it right now. Yes.
Awesome. So just before I hand it over to Martin, just a quick introduction. So, as we sit today, so Town along with Diamond and Smith have been working in the background, developing the conceptual plan for the ACC Master Plan Renovation Project. Today, we are here to review and request formal approval for the preferred concept plan and to move to the detailed design phase of the project. So those are the two recommendations. And I'll hand it over to Martin.
Well, thank you very much, Jackson. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak here today. Good afternoon, Town of Ajax Council. So today I'm going to lead you through the project that was developed with the town management group of the concept project from initiating the project concept back in August of 2025, running through some of the stakeholder engagements. We'll be talking a little bit about the existing building conditions that prompted a lot of the development or concept development investigations. We will share information on the Public Information Center that occurred in December of 2025. I'm ahead of schedule here. And then lead you through the proposed concept design that will then move us into...
Apologies, we're having some audio issues. I'm not sure if you're using headphones of some sort, but it's very garbled.
I will double check that.
On the left-hand side of your screen under audio settings, could you take a look and see what is selected as your microphone there? Do you have a microphone option there?
I just have the speaker. It just has the regular laptop speaker. Does that sound any better?
No, we're having...
No, so sorry. I'll ask the chair if we can take a 5-minute recess and we'll troubleshoot your audio and we'll come right back.
Hey, folks, let's say we do a 5-minute recess and come back at 2:55. 8 minutes. Thank you, everyone. Okay, Council, we are going to get started in 10, 9, still want the 3, 2, 1 countdown. Okay, everyone, welcome back to today's meeting of the GDC, May 11, 2026. We are on item 6.3 OES-2026-10. I believe the consultant has worked out our tech issues. Please go ahead. You have 10 minutes.
Good afternoon again. I apologize for the earlier technical issues, so I'll just jump right back into the agenda. We're going to be looking at the roadmap today, just quickly skimming over where we've come from, talking about the stakeholder engagement, looking at the existing condition of the building and how the concept derived from that. We'll talk about the Public Information Center that occurred back in December of 2025, and then we'll go dive into the proposed concept and the expansion that was chosen.
Can you do me a favor? Try turning off your camera, or perhaps it's an internet connection, not a microphone issue. Because you are still coming up a little staticky, so we're going to try that.
Is my camera off now?
Okay, and go ahead.
Okay, perfect. So the roadmap for the ACC began first with the Recreation Master Plan back in 2022, from which the proposal came into our possession back in 2025 Q2, and then from there we went into the design concept stage. Next slide, please. We've over the following months, we have spoken to a number of stakeholders. These include the Accessibility Committee Group, the Seniors Club Group, Fitness and Health and Group, Aquatic Club, Boxing Club, Snack Bar and Concession, as well as YMCA and Early Years Childcare. So looking into the existing building conditions, skimming that over. So from the early days, 1967, the first inception of the community center with its ice rink and community hall. And now looking at current day status. So the ice rink still exists in its current, where that cursor is located. Everything else around it has changed, including the context, of course. The existing building has been renovation process and has gone through over at least 4 major renovation renovation periods, starting from 1967 into 1972, major renovation in 1991, an addition of ice pad 3 and 4 during the 1999 renovation. As it happens to be, and because of the multiple renovations, the condition of the ground floor inside the ACC is actually quite varied throughout. So there isn't a stable sort of one level. It's multiple levels that are connected through the multiple generations of renovations that have happened. So there's a great variety, even in the ground floor, of being at 0 all the way up to 1.4 where the banquet hall is, and down to minus 0.7 meters, which exists within the boxing rink and squash courts. That is illustrated here in the sort of 3-dimensional graph indicating the levels and its connectivity. I think this would what mainly this illustrates is the accessibility and the communication, at least in terms of physical connectivity between the spaces and between the levels, and how difficult the transitions are. We then reviewed the current and existing program. So we looked at the banquet hall and the multipurpose areas, a few of the large and medium and small rooms, current tenant areas with the early years, rock climbing, boxing, snack bar, and hockey team. We looked at the existing auditorium areas. This is the 25 meter lane pool, along with the solarium, the current fitness center and squash courts, which are existing on the facility. Of course, the administration offices, camp offices and administration facilities are housed within that building. And then there's the 4 ice rinks. In terms of the proposed program additions coming out of the discussions and the stakeholder engagement, as well as the proposal that was issued to us is, so first of all, in auditorium areas, which is the pool areas, there's a requirement for a new warm water therapy pool that will go adjacent to the existing, to the lane pool that is going to be there, with addition of a small teaching multipurpose room. With regards to the tenant areas, a key component of that was the enlarged food and snack area, which currently is undersized and is not working to its efficiency. Next, we looked at the fitness areas, where we looked at the double gymnasium, an indoor pickleball court. That was the addition requested. Space for stretching conditioning, a brand new walking track, fitness rooms that could be associated with the fitness program, and also increase the size of the existing fitness area to allow for accessibility type of equipment, as well as a full allocation of space that is required. And lastly, we looked at the seniors group areas, and what I mean by that is looking at the current St. Andrew's Community Center and how that program might be able to fit into the future ACC and be housed under one roof by sharing all of the amenities and sharing all of the programs. In terms of the Public Information Center, again, occurred on December 16, 2025, along with the public survey that was spearheaded in December and lasted until January. The large engagement that occurred with over 1,000 members joining, participation from both in person as well as online. I think the key thing to highlight here is 3 concepts were provided for review for the Public Information Center at that time. And overwhelmingly, the West Expansion option, concept 1, was preferred as the one was preferred by both the stakeholders, the group, as well as the members that viewed it. So I'm going to lead you into the proposed concept at this point, and I'll start off with the master plan. So here, just to contextualize where we are. So on the north upper right-hand corner, we have the 4 ice rinks, which are sort of identified in the gray boxes. Just below that, we have the ACC, which takes into account the current location of the ACC plus the expansion that we envision. Looking just south of that, of course, we have the existing parking lot and the tennis courts. Based on the discussions that have occurred to date, it was also realized that the parking capacity at the ACC, both being utilized for the variety of programs on site, as well as the ACC, and potentially being taken over partially by some hospital users, is in an inadequate condition. Whereas in order to supplement that, potentially we can look at a parking lot to the west, where it would be expanded and it could create a connectivity from the east as well as from the west, in that sense, into the ACC. The move that will allow for that to occur as well, and for the ACC to expand to the west, is to relocate the current public tennis courts to be adjacent to the members' tennis courts rather than be north of them. Next slide, please. Next slide. This is a rendering, a very conceptual rendering of early thoughts of sort of entry point. This is a view from the south viewing to the north, view from the southeast, looking at the lobby. The west expansion again has a multi-story lobby and a drop-off area, which is located now to the south. It has wide interior circulation routes, clear connectivity, and focus on accessibility. The natatorium areas, the pool areas, will have an increased capacity of 8 lanes as per our stakeholder engagement and the requirements of the programs, with, of course, the addition of the warm water pool. In the gymnasium, we would have the double gymnasium dedicated to multisport, and then the third gymnasium dedicated strictly to pickleball courts. All in all, the courts themselves can be transformed, so we could have sort of a scenario where we have a setup of 12 pickleball courts if need be. The existing banquet hall will be relocated in order to facilitate a greater connectivity to the site and its capacity to fulfill the program uses. Just diving a little bit more in terms of where things are located. So now we're looking at, again, ice pad 1, 2, 3, 4, just to give you a sense of relationship where we are. On this, just south of that, we will be then developing a gymnasium that is centrally located. West of the gymnasium, we'll have the natatorium with its 2 pools, along with its change rooms, and then joined by fitness. And on the east side, we will have the banquet hall, senior area, senior groups area, as well as early years connected to an outdoor landscape portions. This is a concept view of being inside the lobby on level 1. So we are looking east here towards the banquet hall, and in front of us we have the gymnasium, which is highlighted by the sort of the orange wood glow. Diving further into the plan, starting off from the south, the concept here really, again, stressing the connectivity and accessibility, is creating one guiding principle where you connect the existing ice pads on the north with the new expansion to the south. So really creating an internal alley that connects, we call it the Galleria, that connects the north and south, and through that is able to connect all the programs from the east to the west. So really one guiding sort of organizing spine that allows for easier access and easier connectivity. Again, off of that spine going to the east, there's the 2 pools inside the natatorium, the change room for both public as well as excuse me, as well as the membership group, along with any monitor rooms and aquatic rooms that are required. Fitness center is located centrally next to the Galleria, so visibility is quite good from the central spine, and so is the gymnasium. So looking from the south, we have the 2 gymnasia that house multisport, with the last one on the north being the pickleball courts. What we managed to also do is keep 2 of the squash courts that we currently have within the program, locate those north of the pickleball courts, so that really the fitness area is centrally located, and here highlighted in that light purple color. And then moving towards the east, the now relocated banquet hall, which is down at the south corner, has good proximity to both parking drop-off and the outdoors, has its own separate entry point, but is still connected to the rest of the proposed ACC program. Just north of that would be the seniors group area, where we would have the games room, the lounge, the main hall, as well as any of the spaces that are required. And then following that, it would be early years, again, nestled into the corner, likely very similar to its current condition, except being connected to the outdoors as well. This is a view down that central galleria. So we're looking south here towards reception. So on your left, we have the double-story gymnasium with the walking track up above, and then the playing surface on the ground floor. If you're looking down the corridor from that view, that's okay. But basically looking at the fitness would be on the right-hand side, along with the development of the Wall of Fame as well. On the second floor, we have the building again is split along the Galleria into the two sort of zones. The eastern zone has the boxing club, which exists as part of the current program. It would also house the youth room, the fitness center, the wellness studios, really being on top of the spaces down below, so close proximity. Moving towards the east, we have the walking track, which will circle around the 3 gymnasia components down below. And then further off to the east, we'll be having the administration office, the facilities offices, along with the larger multipurpose rooms on the south end, connected again to the outdoors. And this is a view on the second floor in the lobby. So we're looking at the walking truck just in front of us, and down to the first floor of the lobby and the banquet hall off in the distance. And that concludes my summary of the presentation today. Thank you all for allowing me to present this.
We'll start with Councilor Tyler Moore.
Thank you. This is everything. It's exciting and scary. It's. I have a question. So just to get my bearings straight, on your third last slide where it has the map, just confirming a few things for my perspective. And I understand that this is not hardcore. The last we'll hear about this design. There'll be different designs or tweaks to everything, assuming this comes to all to fruition. So my question is this: the 4 ice pads are not moving, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. The south entrance, if we go to that slide again, and what would be in the middle is currently where the doors are for the HMS room. Is that right? If I go to the middle of that, and everything to the left of that would be a new build, correct? Like
that's correct.
Okay, now that's okay. I'm doing good so far. And then the HMS room for the bottom right-hand corner, you're saying that it will be the same size or even bigger as the one we know now? If we want to, there'll probably be options to close it off.
It will be the same size as what you currently have. We have not increased the program area, or was not requested at least to increase it.
Good to know. Now, again, as I often say very quickly, so the cost estimates at this stage for the overall, which I know there's a lot more to come, but if there's shortfalls in those cost estimates, how would we deal with that? Is this going to be done incrementally as per your report? Can you speak to that a little bit, how that's going to work? Thank you, Mr. Meredith.
I can actually take this one, Councillor Tyler Moran, sort of through the chair to yourself. At this point in time, we are at the conceptual plan stage, and obviously as we move and hopefully receive authorization to move into detailed design, what that will allow us to do is prepare a formal Class C estimate, which, as we go through the process, that's information that we would share with council. Obviously, as we get costs and we look to fund this, we're going to need to come before council, and it will in all likelihood be early in 2027. Sort of we would want to have the next term of council having current numbers and dollars and identifying this project within the strategic plan over the next 4 years. So what we will be doing is we're planning to make sure that the new council will have the information to make an informed decision as it relates to their strategic priorities during the next 4 years. So between now and sort of December of this year, we're obviously seeking authorization to advance the drawings, to get into some more details so that we can get some more accurate pricing. While at the same time, it opens us up to apply for some grant opportunities, which obviously have a huge impact in terms of the overall financing of this project. So there's a number of things at play. As you know, not all of this is sort of a combined project where a large percent of it is growth related and a significant portion is asset management, right? So you've got an existing pool that's been there for over 60 years. About 60 years. It requires replacement. A lot of the original components, if we didn't proceed with this project, would result in capital projects that we'd be looking to fund. And I think if you remember when Mr. Williamson did his asset management plan update to council at the previous meeting, at the time, I believe it was Regional Councillor Crawford, there was a sort of a $20 million value of critical assets requiring replacement. And she had asked sort of what those were. And we said roughly 10 million of that was attributed to ACC based on the life and the age of the building. So this type of project sort of deals with some of those asset management needs that we have regardless. So I think there's a number of things that come into play in terms of asset management, growth related infrastructure. Obviously, accessibility is first and foremost, given the challenges that we have in this facility. And then potential grant opportunity. So it's a multifaceted sort of financial package that we would have to put together and bring all of that information to council.
Okay, and would you say it's fair to frame this financially? When it's all said and done, we snap our fingers, we have this, the designs look great, that it would cost a third or maybe half of a tear down, brand new, from scratch community center?
I wouldn't be able to give you a percentage. We know we've monitored what's going on in other communities with respect to new community centers. We understand the costs of a new facility being, you know, I'm going to say 175 to 200 and some odd $million. So
yes, sir.
They are substantial in terms of what we're seeing in the municipal world for new community centers. So I don't know what this would be as a percentage of that, but I do think there is a benefit to this approach. And
okay,
secondly, yeah. we don't have land elsewhere to build from scratch. And this area is also in our prime growth area within the downtown area. So forecasting and building this facility for the next 20 to 30 years.
Okay, appreciate that answer. I know I put you on the spot a little bit. And finally, the facade of the building, especially on the east side where now is the main entrance where we all walk in to go skating and that. Is that going to be ripped down, or is that going to be sort of built within the new structure? Or can you answer that now? But just wondering.
The entire facade will have a refreshed look. I'll let Martin speak to that perhaps in more architectural detail.
Please. Just to repeat my question, just wondering if the facade overall will stay.
The facade overall, it's going to need an overhaul in terms of what it is. The building was last built in 1991, so the building code in itself has been updated. So the current facade and the energy audit of the existing ACC is basically stating us that we're dealing with a facade that is not compliant in today's codes. So touching this facility, we will need to renovate and upgrade facades, both from a user comfort as well as environmental stability point of view, and sustainability point of view.
The arenas stay as they are, at least in where they'll be. Okay, that question was already answered. I'll leave it at that, Chair. I'm sure everybody else has more answers. I could ask another 100 questions. Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Councillor Henry.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the plan. I was at the consultation in December and it looked great. Lots of great input and feedback during that time period. I wanted to ask about the parking lot. Are we touching the existing parking lot as far as lessening the number of spots? Did you say yes or no to that?
No, through the chair to Councillor Henry, we would be actually looking to increase the number of parking spaces with the addition programming that we would be bringing to this facility. We are looking to basically retain what's there, not reducing any spots, in particular to the south. There'd be some reconfiguration to the drop-off area that you have along the existing main entrance along the east side of the building. So there may be a row that gets replaced through that slight expansion to the east. But the primary area would be a new parking lot west of the ice pad, south of the existing fire hall where there's an existing soccer field on Monarch. So that would essentially be able to provide a few hundred parking spaces that would be able to support the increased programming requirements for this site.
And just to clarify, to the south of where we're building, that large parking area almost attached to the hospital, we're not taking away any spots in there. We're just adding spots to the west, correct?
Correct. That's
Okay,
correct.
that's all
Yeah.
I wanted to ask. It's a great plan and fully support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Regional Councillor Crawford.
Thank you. Thank you, Dave, for remembering about that asset plan, because that is a very important piece of that our massive asset plan management. This is 10 million of that plan, right? That's what you said, correct?
Yeah, I'm ballparking it, but there's a number of capital projects that are in the range of $10 million that we'd be looking to do regardless, sort of over the next 5+ years. Yes.
I mean, I don't mean to be jumping around on the agenda, please. And do you mind if I take a little bit of latitude, Mr. Chair?
What did you want to reference?
Never mind. I'll wait till the report comes up.
Thank you.
So the number is 60 million at this point that we know of, correct? And we're hoping and anticipating that we will be able to get some grants that are going to help us with that project, correct?
Yeah, we're aware of some grant opportunities that seem to be available or have been announced in adjacent or GTA municipalities that we would hope this project would be eligible for.
Okay. And okay, I think I'll hold to my to the other reports, but thanks, Dave. I appreciate it.
The only other part that I wanted to add on to that is we've obviously added the seniors component to this site based on the previous discussions with respect to St. Andrews. So there has been some additional scope of work that we've added to this project as well over the past year. So just wanted to clarify and remind council of what we're doing and how we've engaged the older adults community.
I'm sorry. One question. Like currently right now, this ACC is, it's rentable as far as hockey rinks and those kinds of things. But we do anticipate being able to generate some revenue from the improvements that we're going to be doing over time, correct?
So you're touching on an important point because all we seem to talk about are the capital dollars associated with community centers and sort of what they've been costing. And as I mentioned, we hope to have relatively good cost estimates to provide the new term of council prior to them identifying and establishing their priorities for that year. As part of that, working with Chris Vita and his team in recreation, there's also going to have to be an operating business model. So as part of that, it won't be just the capital costs alone, it'll also be a business case that'll look at the facility upon build out from an operating perspective. So you're quite correct in terms of revenue opportunities, sponsorship or licensing opportunities. There's obviously going to be some additional costs from a staffing and resourcing perspective. So we think council needs to see all of that information sort of packaged together when making your decision. So, you are correct. There are we feel substantial revenue opportunities as part of this development
That we would never get in its current state.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bauer for the first time.
Thank you, Chair Lee. Thank you very much for the presentation. And Director Meredith, I don't really have any question. I love it. I love it. Thank you for the comments that you've made so far about this is really a plan that focuses on the growth and the asset management. Those are very important. And especially when we look at our ward and the intensification specifically in Ward 3 that's going to happen. And these folks are going to need updated and plentiful amenity space. And just the question that Regional Councillor Crawford just asked about revenue opportunities, you know, if I just think offhand, we can now hold basketball tournaments, hold pickleball tournaments. There'll be more rental space for parties and family events. So I think there's just some great opportunities here. And thank you for including the Wall of Fame. And that's all I'll say. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Councillor Henry for a second time.
Thank you. Sorry, I did have another question about parking, going back into the parking. Since we're increasing parking and we're talking about increasing programming available space at this location, will that include increased accessibility spots?
Yes, it will.
It will? And is that in the current parking structure where it is now or in the new space?
We will look, in all honesty, we have to, and we've engaged as part of the design process, a traffic consultant, because while we expand the parking, we're going to have to look at internal access and traffic flow upon build out of this facility. So as part of that, we will ensure that there will be more than enough accessible parking spaces that will be provided in proximity to the main entrance doors. Until we get to that site plan level of detail, I can't be specific in terms of locations, but as part of everything relating to this facility, accessibility is at the front of our mind.
Thank you.
Thank you. Regional Councillor Dyes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead. Oh, Joanne, stop hitting that button. Just hit it once, and
Okay,
we can hear you now. Go ahead.
thank you. So for Mr. Meredith, I mean, thank you for including the seniors in this plan moving forward. And you mentioned that there is going to be a games room, a lounge, and a main hall. And I'm just wondering if you've had any, you know, preliminary discussions with the seniors regarding this move, potential move.
So through the chair to Regional Councillor Dyes, yes, there have been discussions with the older adults group. There's obviously going to, at this point in time, the concept plan really allocates the space. There's going to be continued dialogue and meetings with each of the stakeholders, from the aquatics club to the older adults to our fitness staff, in terms of actual designing the space. So by awarding this contract today, it allows us to advance those discussions with all of our stakeholders. So people can start a lot of the detailed questions that we're getting, that over the past 6 to 8 months, we saying, you know, it's somewhat preliminary. We're just at a conceptual stage, that they'll have the opportunity to provide their feedback. They will. Over the next 6 months, we will have a full communication strategy and a stakeholder group that will meet, and they will now get more involved in what they want to talk about, which are the specifics of the space. So that will happen between now and the end of the year.
Well, thank you for that. And I think it's a really great opportunity for the seniors going into the Ajax Community Center, where it'll open up many more opportunities, you know, for recreation and other things. Also, it's so much easier for them to get there via transit. So thank you very much for that. And I'm looking forward to hearing what they say and what the discussion will work out at the end of the day. I think it'll be positive. So thank you.
Thank you, Council. That exhausts all the comments and questions. We're going to move up the report number OES-2026-10. Recommendation is number 1, council endorse the preferred concept plan for the Ajax Community Center master plan renovation. Number 2, council award the contract for the detailed design of the Ajax Community Center renovation expansion to Diamond Schmidt Architects in the amount of $2,861,160 inclusive of all taxes. Any questions, comments, concerns regarding the recommendation and report? Seeing none, we're going to start the vote. Sorry. Thank you. Councilor Bauer is going to move this. Thank you, Councilor Bauer. Sorry, we're going to reset it, everyone. It passed. It's fine. It's fine. Okay, we're good. Never mind. Everyone voted. It's moved by Councilor Bauer. I forgot to get a mover. Clerks were muttering to me. All right, Council, just to give you a bit of a spot check. We still have one more presentation, and then we still have the entire consent agenda because everything was pulled. I only mentioned this because I'm going to be a bit less lenient on going over our prescribed times. So we're on PDS-2026-14 Stormwater Master Plan Update. I'll leave it to Director Romanowski to set the table.
Thank you, Chair Lee. I'll just going to turn it over to Stephen Ruddy, Manager of Development Engineering, to introduce the consultant and the Stormwater Master Plan Update.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor and members of Council. My name is Stephen Ruddy, Manager of Development Engineering. I'm happy to be here today to present Council with an update on the town's ongoing Stormwater Master Plan. I'm joined today remotely by our consultant, Aquifer Beach Limited. They are an industry leader in stormwater management and low impact development. In fact, several of the team members we have working with us on the master plan were also involved in the original rain gardens design and construction down at the waterfront off Lake Driveway, which of course have been very successful. So we're excited to be working with them again. This project is a bit of a macro extension of that rain garden project in that we're looking at stormwater strategies for the entire town. So with that, I will turn it over to our team, Chris and Megan at Aquifer Beach, to walk us through a quick update of the plan, after which I will be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Megan, hit your request to speak. That's the middle button with the head 3 lines. Okay, and now don't touch it again. It's all yours. Go ahead.
Great. Thank you, Stephen. I will share my screen. My name is Megan Destin. I am a Senior Water Resource Engineer for Aquifer Beach Limited, as Stephen mentioned. And I'm going to share my screen. Window. This one. It still says waiting for sharing source. I'll just give it a minute. Okay, I'll try again. Change screen.
There you go. We got it now.
Oh, I was impatient. Okay, great. Cancel. All right. So as Stephen said, I'm going to give an overview of the ongoing Stormwater Management Master Plan. We'll start with the need for this study, some key background information, some of the current findings, again, ongoing, and some of the future recommendations that you can expect down the road. So the master plan is being completed following the municipal class environment assessment. We're following approach 2, which means that Schedule B projects can proceed to detailed design following completion of the master plan. The project started in spring 2024 with a characterization of the current condition. We're currently in stage 2, which will be developing the preferred alternatives for the town, consisting of different projects and programs. Once this stage is complete, we'll move on to the implementation plan, which is stage 3, which will be developed to include the actual implementation of all the recommendations from the master plan over the next 10 years. So this project focuses on stormwater, which is water originating from rainfall and other precipitation events. When it runs off buildings, roadways, and other surfaces, it can bring pollutants to storm sewers, which ultimately outlet to watercourses or directly into natural areas, which can harm wildlife, reduce aesthetic value, and can also cause flooding. Stormwater requirements in Ontario started in the early 80s with flood control. and then quality control became more of a thing in the 90s. Ajax was incorporated in 1955. So again, building before even then. And this is before stormwater management requirements. So there are areas of Ajax with no stormwater treatment at all, which brings us to this master plan again. The system in Ajax includes catch basins, sewer pipes, ditches, and treatment facilities, including dry ponds, wetlands, low impact development, like the rain gardens along the waterfront that Stephen mentioned, and oil and grit separators. So storm ponds can be dry or wet, and they collect and store stormwater to reduce flooding and erosion by limiting the release of water to nearby creeks and rivers and allow for settling of pollutants. Low impact development, or LIDs, mimic natural water cycles by encouraging infiltration or providing filtration and then reducing runoff. And finally, oil and grit separators are underground devices that are attached to the storm sewer that provide mechanical treatment to remove pollutants such as sediment and oil and grease. As you all know, Ajax is growing, which will increase the demand on the existing infrastructure. There's also new provincial legislation requirements that need to be reflected in town policies. Climate change projections show increased precipitation events, which will also increase the demand on the existing infrastructure. And then there are historic flooding in issues in parts of Ajax that will be accounted for in this plan. As of 2022, the town has a consolidated linear infrastructure environmental compliance approval document for stormwater management. This is from the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks. And part of this document, Appendix A, includes all of the stormwater management criteria requirements that are applicable for development and redevelopment projects. So these include water balance, water quality, erosion control, water quantity, flood control, and erosion and sediment control. LIDs are an approach to stormwater management that use natural features to absorb, filter, and slow runoff at the source. And LID features aim to reduce stormwater contributions to the municipal storm sewer. And these are particularly relevant because, as I just talked about the CLIACA, there's a requirement within that document to provide quality control for the 90th percentile storm event for retrofit scenarios. And LIDs are designed and widely accepted across Ontario to provide this control for the 90th percentile event. And the town has some, but they're also easy to incorporate throughout the town. So some examples include, we have a perforated pipe on the top left, which is a long infiltration trench that conveys and infiltrates runoff. Bioswale on the top right temporarily stores and treats runoff by passing it through an engineered media within the bioswale itself and takes advantage of the chemical, biological, and physical properties of plants, microbes, and soils to remove pollutants from the runoff. Similar to a bioswale, a bioretention bump out is a vegetated curb extension that includes that engineered media that also temporarily stores, treats, and infiltrates runoff. And that can be used in conjunction with traffic calming measures. So there's different aspects for all of these LIDs. And finally, a permeable pavement lay-by allows water to drain through the pavement and into the ground. So it reduces overland runoff caused by impervious surfaces such as parking lots, driveways, laneways, etc. And it also reduces the risk of flooding where it's applied. Within the master plan, we're looking at many different measures, some of which include end of pipe measures. So facilities that are at the end of the storm sewer system, such as wetlands, dry ponds, wet ponds, that reduce erosion, improve water quality, and reduce flooding. Conveyance infrastructure and controls, which move stormwater away from the source. So examples would include a traditional curb and gutter system, but also a bioswale like we just looked at, a grass channel, or a subsurface perforated pipe system, again, like the slide previously. Stream restoration can look at stream erosion issues or just bank stabilization and natural channel designs. And then we have source control measures, which help water soak into the ground Again, at the location, that may include rain gardens like the ones at the waterfront, permeable pavement, and soakaway pits. The town has a current stormwater fee based on a study done in 2021. We'll evaluate it based on the costs of the projects and programs to be implemented in the next 10 years that have been identified in the study, as well as the life cycle costs of those projects and programs. Funding alternatives will also be assessed, and this fee is needed to implement all these projects and programs, but also to continue inspecting and maintaining the infrastructure that already exists in Ajax, including the 50 town-owned ponds, the 30 OGS units, the 6 rain gardens, and other drainage-related issues like complaints, erosion, and sediment control. And again, just all the inspections that are required with that. So some of the potential solutions that we're looking at include source controls for empty town-owned areas where there's little to no quality control being provided currently. Conveyance will be recommended in the right-of-way for all capital road construction and reconstruction projects. And this is done to reduce costs, but also to align with the CLICA. So we'll increase quality control with all of those projects that are already being planned as part of the capital plan. 62.3% of the town urban area doesn't have any form of water quality or quantity control. So we've also identified some new end of pipe facilities for 5 areas that will improve that water quality, bringing the area without control down to 57.6. So this map shows the blue, green, yellow, and red, or not red, yellow and orange are different types of existing facilities within the town. And then our light pink shows the 5 proposed locations for new end of pipe facilities. The left has an example of what a site we worked on in Mississauga looked like before there was an end of pipe facility. And then the bottom is the after picture. So some of the future outcomes of the master plan will be to update the engineering criteria and guidelines the town has to align with our findings, to apply recommendations to leverage potential synergies with other town initiatives, to continue integrating source and conveyance control practices into road projects, including construction and reconstruction, and to develop a public outreach and education program regarding stormwater management. So again, we are currently in stage 2, which means we're working through an assessment of the town's infrastructure and future condition to develop a preferred strategy, all of which will be presented to the public at a second public open house. And then that leads us to stage 3, where we'll develop the implementation plan and finalize the master plan. And that is the...
Thank you so much for your presentation, and you kept it within 10 minutes. You are an all-star. First question goes to Region Councillor Crawford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Will the 10-year capital plan confirm that the current stormwater fee is sufficient? Do you see, I mean, we've been doing this now for, has it been 3 years? Going into 4?
Through the chair to Councillor Crawford, yes, that's correct. So we'll be looking at the entire budget and the 10-year forecast, and many of the same principles that have been discussed already regarding funding capital projects will be applied in the exact same way to the stormwater projects, in that we'll be making sure they're all fully funded for the forecast.
So
sorry. We also have the consultant. I think you might want to chime in on that question as well. One moment. Chris, go ahead. Chris, you requested to speak? Okay, we'll just leave you here for now. Sorry, Region Councillor Crawford, keep going.
Okay. Are any of the stormwater, I mean, I consider them to be assets, right?
Yeah.
Stormwater plans are asset. Are they included in the asset management plan at all?
Absolutely.
Really look at
yes.
Yeah. Okay. So that was all part of that. Okay, cool. So you know stormwater ponds better than anyone I know of. You must have already identified your priorities in what needs to get done, correct? In the like 50 ponds, I can't believe it. In my neighborhood, we don't have a single one, but.
Through the chair again, yes, absolutely. So initially when developing the budget and forecast, years ahead of this master plan and even the recently completed condition analysis that we did in 2025, just from when some of the facilities were constructed, we knew which ones were most likely to be full. And we confirmed that with bathymetric surveys, which are just they go out in a little boat and they survey how deep the sediment is in it. And then you can do the math to see the volume. And then from that, you can form a budget and work on the project of rehabilitating that stormwater pond. So we had a pretty good idea already of what stormwater ponds needed to be cleaned out. And it was really easy at the beginning because the answer was essentially almost all of them. So we've been able to, kind of move our way through our first few pond cleanouts. There's one going on right now off Rosslyn Road as part of the Nottingham subdivision. And with the recent surveys that we had on all of the wet ponds that we have, we've reorganized the forecast to more better address the ponds that are in highest need.
So of the 50 ponds that were identified in the report, are those only ponds that the town now has responsibility for? Does that include ponds that we don't have yet we haven't assumed?
Correct. There's about 62 or 63 ponds, and about a dozen of those are private or unassumed. So they're either owned by, for instance, the Costco pond or the Chapters pond. Amazon has a pond. H&M has a pond. They're all privately owned, so the town doesn't have to go in and really take responsibility for those. But the other 50, we do own, and we are responsible for maintaining them.
Right, and so the ponds that are currently in development right now that we haven't assumed, not private ones, but ones we haven't assumed, does the developer have a responsibility to clean them up before we take over? Like, we don't get a bad pond and then have to clean it up?
That's correct. We make sure that we get a bathymetric survey ahead of assumption, well ahead of assumption, and we have their engineer certify that it's within the specifications of the original design. And then we review the survey as well to make sure that it's, in line as much as reasonable with the original approved design.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Moore, questions to the presentation?
Thank you, Chair, for letting me in. A very quick question to you, Mr. Ruddy. The stormwater fee that was initiated about 4 years ago, it was earmarked on our annual taxes as a one-time fee, but we were able to bring in places of worship, other places that weren't necessarily contributing, and have huge multi areas of non-permeable surfaces, I should say, and they now contribute. So I believe what I just said is sort of right. So would you consider it a success that we did this and there's now a more realistic funding model for the cleanup and maintenance of stormwater ponds?
Through the chair, yes, absolutely. Previously, there was no dedicated funding stream for funding stormwater management, and with the implementation of the stormwater fee, we can now, with confidence forecast out 10 years, knowing that funding will be there.
Yeah, I was very happy to see it as a somewhat of a break or a fairness to residents that were already paying it, and others in the community that, as I said, ironically have these massive, non-permeable surfaces to contribute to the funding. Okay, thank you. I just wanted to get that on record. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thanks
you,
for the-
Councillor Henry.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. What qualifies for stormwater to move up on your list? What type of things would make you rejig your list and say, hey, I need to move this pond up to be clean now?
Through the chair to Councillor Henry, the primary driver is volume of sediment relative to the permanent pool volume. And so if you think of the pond as having two portions, the portion above the water that fills up when it rains and drains slowly, and then the portion below water, which is where all the gunk and the dirt and the grit and the sediment fall out of the water and end up on the ground. And over time, that fills up and fills up and fills up, and it hits kind of a subjective tipping point to essentially not be in compliance with our provincial CLI ECA, which allows us to own, maintain, and operate these facilities. So at some point, the water is so full of, sediment that the pond isn't doing its water quality job anymore. So for instance, if we're looking at actual numbers, we might have a pond that's say 30% full of sediment, which is plenty enough to warrant a clean out or a rehabilitation of that facility. Whereas a facility that is more new might only be 5 or 6 or 7% full of sediment. And by doing the condition assessments every so many years, which is what we've laid out in the forecast right now, we'll be able to develop trend lines that show how fast each facility is filling up, and we'll be able to forecast, much more accurate clean out dates to help guide the spending of the stormwater fee.
And does the sediment buildup, does that cause any type of odor or off-gassing? Like if I have residents in a particular area saying there's a particularly pungent odor arising from a stormwater pond, is that an indication?
Generally, no. Mostly if residents are smelling things from a pond, it's probably all the biological aspects of what comes with a pond. So all the plants that are living and dying in it, all the frogs that live and die in the facility as well. All of that, it really smells like an ecosystem. And a lot of residents might say it smells like sewage, but like sewage isn't going into it. We find that a lot of the complaints they just smell like outdoor ponds, and they're not really full of sediment per se.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions, we're going to move the report up. We have report number PBS-2026-14, Stormwater Master Plan Update. Recommendation is council received for information. I see moved by Councilor Tyler Morin. Any more questions, comments, concerns regarding the report? Seeing none, we're going to start the vote. And that passes. Thank you, everyone. We're now going to shoot right back to the top of the agenda and do the consent agenda. All items have been pulled. So we will start with, pardon me for one moment, item 4.1, PSA-2026-08, Lean Impact Report. This is pulled by Councilor Regina Crawford. Councilor Crawford? Regina Councilor Crawford?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for this report. I'm just curious. The primary objectives of Lean are to reduce effects and reduce costs. But in the report, it says the primary objective in adopting Lean is not to solely focus on achieving automatic efficiencies or immediate cost savings. That seems counter to what Lean is. Am I right or am I wrong?
Through the chair to Regional Councillor Crawford, it's counterintuitive in terms of that is our, if you say it like that immediately. However, we're talking about a long-term plan here for the return on investment, right? So it's like we have to develop that skill set across the organization. And so our immediate goal today isn't for those large, massive wins. It's to develop people who can continuously identify waste and improve processes and prevent issues as they grow. So without lean thinking, like without getting everyone trained, improvements depend on a few people and we're less likely to see those efficiencies. So we want to take the time to make sure that people are properly trained, they have the skill set. So in the long run, this is part of their day-to-day. And then we are seeing that long-term return on investment, which would see those efficiencies and improvement in waste.
Okay, because it sounds like from today's report, we're going to need to use a lot of lean processes to get some efficiencies. The senior management team, how much time was spent like by senior management team and who is on the lean team from senior management?
So senior management was trained just like the regular workforce was trained in Yellow Belt. So there's 2 days of training associated with that. The lean team itself is made up of representatives that wanted to be part of organizational corporate reviews, like larger projects. There isn't a set defined team per se. It's only as required and as on a volunteer basis. As for directors, it would only be if it impacted a specific department and they wanted to be part of that. Some can step away. They don't need to be part of it if they don't want to. I know that the CAO is our champion, so he often checks in and wants to be involved and understand how these projects are going to progress.
Okay, so who's currently, there has to be like a lead person that kind of coordinates this, is that correct? I know nothing about lean. I'm just from what I've been reading over the last little while. So is there one person who's in charge of this project?
Yes, there is. There's one person in charge of this process. It's part of their overall duties, the position itself. There's other pieces to their position as well. And they do rely on, like they're the facilitator, the lead, the coordinator, but they do rely on the subject matter experts within the department and how they're going to go about doing this particular review of a project. And yeah, so go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. My next question is for CAO Baker, actually. Is he online?
Sure. Yes, he is.
Hey. So this was brought to council to replace the ISO designation, correct?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, are you trained in lean?
Yes, Yellow Belt.
Excellent. And how have you been using it day to day for the, I don't know, improving the processes for the CAO's office?
Well, all of staff that have been trained in it range from senior management now down through managers, and it's been open to all of our staff actually who want to receive the training. So all staff are encouraged to use lean principles when looking at all of their processes. And so I often hear from, like recently we had an update at SMT about the different processes that were going on, and different senior managers also talk about processes that have changed within their departments. And actually I was just reading a report on facility booking and different lean improvements in that process as well. So it's all through the organization.
Okay. And has this so far met your expectations as to what you were hoping for from lean?
I'm hoping, well, first of all, I was very happy and impressed with how many staff actually wanted to receive the training. We made it clear that we become a better organization with more people who take the training, and the corporation pays for the training. So people saw that as an advantage for themselves and the organization. So I was very, very happy and impressed with that, as well as the senior management team as well. But we're still in the early stages. We're still we're now moving towards green belt training, which is a little bit higher, more intense training, which we hope our lean team will have in the future, and then they will be able to go to different departments, and each department head. The idea is that each department head will identify a process that they want reviewed, and the lean team will come in and do that review. And the idea of lean is that you don't just have people that are involved in the process itself right now. Actually, it's better to have people that aren't, and then they ask all kinds of questions to try and understand, what the objective of the process is, and then they can come up with ideas. Well, have you ever thought of doing this? Have you ever thought of doing that? Because they're not involved in it every day. So that's where we want to get to, and we're moving to that training, I believe, this year. Christy would know better than I, but I think we're moving to the Greenbelt training this year, which is more limited.
I'm curious. So as we have retirements come through the organization, is there an opportunity then through Lean to actually look at positions to say, are there areas that perhaps a position was, doing certain processes that really don't make any sense, to be able to lean down that position itself? Is that like, I would never want to look at reducing staff, but I mean, if people are retiring anyway, do we look at, instead of immediately replacing them, but looking at the job itself and trying to establish, different processes instead of hiring again?
So every time somebody leaves the organization, whether it be through retirement or decide to leave or whatever the reason is, we always look at our organizational structure and determine whether or not we can do that if that job is still required, if pieces of that job, if all of the pieces are still required, and if it's in the right place, the right department. All of those things are examined every time somebody leaves the organization.
Okay. Great, thank you. I noticed in here it said that Lean, there was a streamlining of the AMP system in bylaw. Christy, I don't know, can you walk me through what that streamlining looked like and how Lean streamlined it?
So I did, unless Nicole Cooper is there she is. I was just going to recommend that I needed someone from bylaw, but I didn't have them here. So,
okay,
Nicole, can you respond?
Thank you. I can comment on that just at a high level. I think it primarily relates to how cumbersome it was to prepare for POA charges and for going to court in the POA system. Obviously, the court system is quite cumbersome and slow, where now that we have the AMP system here, the hearings and the whole sort of like documentation preparation that goes into that is a lot leaner than what you would find within a court system. I think that's the main driver for the time and cost savings here.
Was that done before Lean or after Lean?
Well, Lean has sort of been ongoing for a couple of years. It was in the midst of Lean. It's certainly the implementation of that would have been after I took Lean training, but I was one of the early ones to get training. But I think many of these things are happening in parallel.
Okay. So do we have any planned milestones for the Lean implementation over the next, 1 to 3 years? Like, are there, like I heard today's report, I could see many opportunities for Lean to be applied in some of these areas. And I'm just wondering if you have any milestones that you're looking at.
Currently, we are developing a program that allows for more information on who is undertaking what on a daily basis and how they're utilizing that. So that's through the Lean tool piece we need to get that set up. So we are measuring how we're doing on a day-to-day basis. From there, on an annual basis, we identify those corporate projects that need to be undertaken. Last year, the big one was facility booking. That is going to be something that we continually do on an annual basis, and we want to get better at that and bigger at that. So we'll have more and more projects. Hopefully, as CEO Baker mentioned, they could be happening ongoing together in different departments at the same time, and those will be as part of any annual report that we do, as part of the budget process in the efficiency report that we do provide council. So all of those projects will be outlined, and we'll get better at quantifying the improvements as we go forward. There is the additional training that we're providing as well that will beef up that lean thinking and the ability to dig deeper into some of the areas that require more and more examination. However, I would, just like we would encourage any staff member, Councillor Crawford, if there's an area that you would like us to look at and use the lean process on, I would encourage you to identify those to CAO Baker, and perhaps we can find some capacity to review those. I mean, you mentioned the reports today. If there's anything that jumps out at you, I would encourage you to speak to CAO Baker on those.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We have Councilor Tyler Moore next.
Thank you, Chair. To staff, to Christy, sorry, to Director McLarty. Where do you think we are with this? Do you think it's infiltrated? Love the program. I mean, everything about it, improved servicing, less cost. Where are we into the system? About 20% in, 30% in, with lots more work to go?
I think the CEO Baker has mentioned, like the pickup on this has been amazing. The people feel like they belong. They want to be part of the solution. They want to find those efficiencies. They want to have these discussions with not only their department, but cross-departmentally as well. The motivation has been there. You can see it in the pickup of the training. A lot of people are curious about it. Everyone wants to improve the way they do their work. And if they have easy ways of doing that, they're going to apply it. And this is something from, CEO Baker down, is everyone's been encouraged to participate and to begin thinking about how they can improve their day-to-day operations. And I think that the more and more we utilize it and we celebrate and recognize those achievements, which we're slowly doing. In 2005, I think was like the first real year that we've been able to at least bring to light some of those achievements in a way that you see in this report today, but also in the budget. We want to go further with that as well. In this particular report, you see the way that Barrie celebrates it. We're not there yet, but I mean, they are communicating some of their achievements right out to the public through their tool that they have. So if I look at where we are compared to like the 21 other municipalities that are currently utilizing Lean, I think that we're like in like the mid to higher level of the pack in the conversations that we've had in terms of where we are. I think people saw how difficult and cumbersome Lean was, and that recommendation to go, ISO was, and that decision to move to Lean, people, like I've said, are very motivated by it and think it's something that they can just apply. So they're encouraged.
Thank you. Thank you for that answer and for the work that's being done. Love it.
Thank you. Councillor Henry.
Thank you. When looking at the report, I'm noticing on page 13, we've got a high volume of folks trained from operations, corporate services, planning and develop in the Lean program. But in the CEO's office, I'm only noticing 2 folks. Am I reading that right?
Yes, you are, because there's only 2 in the CEO's office. There's the CAO and his administrative assistant.
Is that not an opportunity that's offered to all of the staff in the CEO's office?
Yes, there's only 2.
Councillor Henry, we have to differentiate. I think you're mixing up PSA with Office of the CAO. Office of the CAO, I think what the director's saying is only 2 people.
Oh, I understand what you're saying. I got you. I got what you're saying. Oh, strategic public affairs. Okay. That's on me. Thank you. That is totally on me. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
That's it. That was my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Lee. Thank you for this report, Director McLarty. Very interesting and positive results for sure. It's great. I'm a pro trainer, so I think the more training, the better. And it really it motivates staff and it gets the buy-in of staff to make improvements across the board. So my question is the process of a review, when an item or process is chosen to be reviewed by a Lean team, is this something that is done during office hours as part of someone's job, or is this extra work requiring overtime, or like how long? What does an actual review process look like?
We encourage employees that have been trained to undertake their own process reviews and incorporate it into their daily work lives. So, I mean, between office hours and to look at it. If if it's moved to some sort of corporate level, like through the SMT process where we're identifying the larger scale reviews, that would be a conversation that would be needed to be made as part of that team. For instance, if a review needed to be reviewed outside of hours in terms of on a weekend on how a process went, or in an evening, and people wanted to be part of that, I know that the corporation would compensate them accordingly, or there's flex time. It all depends on what's required. But if they have volunteered to be part of this team and they've been selected to work on this particular project, a terms of reference is always outlined in terms of what's required from them. And you know, in this case, if you're talking about compensation that's outside of their hours, they would be definitely compensated for their time and their effort.
Thank you. And can you just talk just a little bit more about this lean calculator that's the next big project? Tell us about it, please.
It's in its infancy. So it's something that our IT department it has been lined up, and I think one of our second meetings is happening tomorrow. So it's really, really fresh. But the idea is that people across the organization can submit when they are working on something, because it's hard for us to even know when that's happening. And we want people to be proactive in letting us know that they are working on it, letting us know what their expectations are of their program project are, what they're what they expect out of it, their outcomes. And then we want to be able to evaluate that. So we want to see at the end. So you'd always have like your current state and your that finalized state. What does that look like, your future state? And are you achieving what you wanted to achieve? And then we'll be able to quantify how well they met the objectives that they had set out. And we'd be able to quantify it better back to council in terms of efficiencies found, savings found, hours saved, those type of things.
Right. Okay. No, that's great. It sounds very proactive and very empowering. So I think that's wonderful. Thank you so much for this information. That was it for me, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. The recommendation from staff is to receive this information. Can I get a mover, please? Show of hand is fine. I see Councillor Bauer. Thank you. Any questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, start the vote. Thank you. And that passes. We're now into item 4.2, PSA-2026-09, Housing Accelerator Fund update. This was pulled by Regional Councillor Crawford and Councillor Henry. Regional Councillor Crawford, do you want to select to speak? Thank you.
Okay, yeah, this is one of the questions I had. Okay. Under the Pickering Village Municipal Complex, a large amount of money was put towards this. $4 million were used in this section. And I was just wondering, can you give me a breakdown of the cost? I apologize, I probably should have sent this out ahead to you. But if you can give me a rough idea of the breakdown of that $4 million. I think your mic is off.
There we go. Is that better?
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. So through the chair to Regional Councillor Crawford. So in the report, it indicates that $1.4 million has been spent on the Pickering Village project to date. That encompasses all of the work that's gone into the site so far. So we have retained a consultant to support the town through the public-private partnership process. So that's everything from providing us a background report on how best to engage. It has involved some procurement guidance on public-private partnership, which is of course a new initiative to the town. It includes the eventual, and it will include the eventual legal support that is required as we kind of go down this road. The funds have also been used to provide some of the preliminary work that's required for the project site itself. including things like surveys, geotechnical studies, and other sort of work related specifically to that site. There are some funds that will be committed to kind of the future state as we go further into the engagement with the preferred development partner once one is selected. But at this time, the bulk of the costs are, and to clarify, the costs that are included here are a mix of, they're what has been committed. They're not necessarily what has been spent. So that's a kind of a summary of the work that's been completed to date, but we do anticipate that given the scope and scale of the project, that's what we have committed to and council approval so far.
And do you think that more money will be committed to that? I mean, it's a housing project, right? So it's perfectly within the lines of the HAF funding. So do you anticipate maybe that we would be able to do more to help that project along?
Through the chair, right now, what staff have committed to this project is sufficient at this time for the project in its current form. What the project will become once a preferred development partner is selected and the development partner has kind of come to the table with staff, and there's been a discussion about, what town elements are required as part of the project, or what the community center would look like, what the actual town-owned portions of this development would be. Once that full process is outlined and agreed upon by staff, a presentation will be made to council that has a holistic presentation of the business case for council's consideration of what the town's responsibility would be, and then through that process would recommend some funding sources, which may include HAF, they may include other related funds, including some items that are currently in the town's DC background study. We have a number of funding sources that would be considered and recommended as we embark on the project.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Henry.
Thank you. I just wanted to touch base. I'm going through my notes here. I'm reading something about staffing in this report. Is that correct? A number associated with staff?
Yes, so through the chair to Councillor Henry, yes, the final number, I think, in the financial implications section is approximately $764,000. So this has been staffing that has been currently used for the life of the Housing Accelerator Fund and is projected to continue until the end of the sort of engagement that the town has on the HAF funding until the end of 2027. So this, as noted in the report, is 3 positions, and these positions are mostly in the planning department, but also so including a planner that has been retained for a 5-year contract. There's another planner that's retained for a shorter contract. And these are for initiative specific engagements. So these include things like the official plan and other elements of the sort of broader housing portfolio. That's what that funding is for. So it's not just a 1 year, it's up to 5 years.
Was there also a communications person that was staffed for this, or is this all in the planning? Like, are you saying that the 3 staff members all work out of the planning department?
No, through the chair, one of the positions is in public and strategic affairs, and that is a communications coordinator position. So that position did a lot of work to get the accessory dwelling unit program up and running. And the next step from there is that this individual will turn their mind more to housing and the general kind of advocacy work and all of the communications work required to communicate effectively the town's initiatives and programs related to housing.
So this is not a staff member that we already had on board. This is a staff member we had to bring in for this role?
So through the chair, the temporary communications coordinator position was established with the onset of the housing and funded by the Housing Accelerator Fund. That position will continue through until the end of the Housing Accelerator Fund engagement, which is the end of December 2027.
And then what happens at that time? That position is no longer there.
So that position, yeah, right now, that position is to be funded by the Housing Accelerator Fund. Any extension of that position would be subject to our internal processes related to staffing, which may include a business case to council or other kind of whatever process is required to extend contract staff.
And just to clarify, a month or so ago, council was asked about another position within our office, and we said no to that position for, I think it was naming rights, something with naming rights. This is not the same position. This is not the same person.
Through the chair, no, that is not the same person. So what was proposed was it wasn't even proposed. It was included in a consultant's report that recommended that the town could retain a full-time contract person for 2 years to proceed with the project. At that time, council did not indicate that was something that they wanted to look at that moment. So that position has not been further contended by staff at this time. This position was approved by council at the outset, or the funding for this temporary contract position was approved by council at the outset of the Housing Accelerator Fund grant program.
Okay, thank you. I think that's all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tyler Morin.
Thank you. The unit targets, are we under construction? Do you have, as per the report, can you give me a very brief percentages? How many are up and running right now and how many are coming? As far as the 3613, I think. Just
through the chair to Councillor Tyler Moore, and this is likely more of a question for Director Romanowski, but I do, what is included in the report indicates that we've kind of done an overall snapshot of housing and what we'd like to accomplish. So the town has agreed with CMHC to commence approximately 3,600 units as part of this program. As a result of kind of the current landscape of housing, we are not close to 3,600 at this time. However, there is, as mentioned, on multiple occasions, is the market dictates when and how housing is built. And so this report really outlines all of the pieces that the town and staff are pushing to advance housing in spite of the market conditions. And that includes everything from the 7 initiatives approved through HAF, as well as some partnerships that staff are facilitating and seeking out, as well as the mayoral directives and other elements that council has kind of supported through that process. So it's really a snapshot to demonstrate that, while the actual number of completed units, and I defer to Director Romanowski for those numbers, it really has been a consistent ongoing effort to, in spite of market conditions, try and facilitate as many units as possible. But at the end of the day, the town has in a bit of a precarious situation because we do not physically ourselves as the town of Ajax build housing.
Absolutely. But just really quickly, as I often say, maybe to Director Romanowski, the 4 that I know that are building now in the town of Ajax, there's Potbelly Square and Salem and Bailey. There's 310 Kingston Road West. There's the Roslyn Road at Audley. Those are 4 that, off the top of my head, I can think of. Are they associated with this 3,600 unit target, or is that something else?
I'd have to, through the chair to Councillor Tyler Moore, I don't have the exact numbers right off the top of my head. I'm just looking through kinds of the housing reports that Sean McCullough issues to me, but I can definitely follow up with you.
Fair enough. Yeah,
following this to kind of give you the breakdown, identify that. We have our reporting and stuff that we could share that information with you.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd like to know that. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. In fact, Director Romanowski, why don't you copy all of council on that, because I'm sure we'll all want to see those numbers, if that's okay. Thank you. So the recommendation is to receive information, I believe. I jumped ahead. Yes, it is. Can I get a mover through hand wave? I see Regional Councillor Dies. Thank you. Any questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, we'll start the vote. And that passes. Thank you, everyone. We're now to item PSA-2026-10, the Winter Warming Town Hall. This was pulled by Councillor Henry. Councillor Henry?
Thank you. Through the chair, I just want to ask a question. So we know that we were the only municipality that stepped up and offered their facility, their actual headquarters town hall facility for the Winter Warming Center across the region. So my question would be, and I know this is a regional file, but what's being put in place to prevent, to accommodate for next year? Because we know like this was a Band-Aid emergency solution that our staff did very well with. And thank you to everyone involved. But moving forward, this is not the answer to the problem for folks being out on the street, and we need other solutions for next winter. So is there something being talked about, a round table, something being put in place?
Thank you. Through the chair to Councillor Henry. Right now, those conversations, as you mentioned, are the region's responsibilities. Staff have, as a debrief from the warming center this year, shared very clearly with the region of Durham that our expectation is that we be at the table to facilitate a more suitable solution for winter warming. Sort of in Ajax to support this project next year. Typically, those conversations kind of start over the summer months, as it has in several past years. But one component of this that I think is worth noting is that the region has sort of struck a working group of staff and at different agencies, including both the region and the town, obviously, but also DRPS, Lakeridge Health, Durham Community Health Center, as well as the CFOC themselves, at which point we are discussing what kind of the future state currently looks like related to homelessness and winter warming in the downtown area. So out of those conversations, we do expect that there will be some direction, but at the end of the day, this will require the region to identify suitable space. In other municipalities, places like Pickering use the Peace Lutheran Church. Downtown Oshawa has the Backdoor Mission and other locations. But I do think that finding a suitable location, the town is there to be a partner with the region. The town is there to make connections, as we did last winter as well. But ultimately, the decision on where winter warming is operated lies with the region.
Yes. So, not to be a bad host, but that was not ideal, as we all know, and we did our best. But yeah, you know what? I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm glad to hear that the conversations are coming in the summertime. And so when you say the conversations, does that mean that our Ajax staff will be at the table, even though it's a regional issue? We'll be there, right? Like to have this voice.
Through the chair to Councillor Henry, yes, consistently, I would, go so far as to say that in the absence of advocacy from town staff, particularly across the organization, in the absence of that, I do think that the severity of the issue and the impacts that we've seen in the downtown area would not be brought to the forefront in the way that they have been, both from town staff and from members of regional council and local council alike. This is an issue that we continue to advocate on in an area that is not our primary core responsibility. And so the town and our team's role is really just facilitating that coordination and making sure that all the affected parties are actually together. We, in a lot of cases, we're offering to host the meetings. We're offering to say, hey, instead of a Teams meeting, why don't we all get together in the same room? Why don't we host it at one of our community centers or at town hall? Hey, can we get this meeting together? It's an ongoing effort that the town takes, and it's one of those pieces where we, it's incremental gains. It's furthering the needle on a very, very complex issue. So we do try to remain as a part at the table to see what we can do to be a part of the solution.
I would go as far as to say, hey, why don't we have the meeting at the Ajax Library Rotary Room? That would be a great place for them to see everything going on. I want to thank our entire staff in, I call it the CAO's office, PSA, for all your hard work on this file and for trying to move the needle. Thank you.
Thank you. Regent Councillor Crawford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am very proud of this project. I'm sorry, that we saved lives. Almost 2,000 people had access to a warm space in an extremely really cold winter, long winter. I sincerely want to thank CAO Baker, Christy, Cass for moving this in a very short period of time. And I also want to again thank and recognize Daniel for the cleanup that he had to do at the end of or at the beginning of every day. So I know that this was a lot of work, and I know that it didn't go without its lumps for sure, but we did save lives. We kept them warm. They had a chance to have a good sleep in a cot, which makes an incredible difference. People that have houses and beds don't realize how important it is to be in a cot and having a good sleep. It improves their mental state. And so I know I'm just proud of our town for stepping up. And I did have a question. The $90,000 that it did cost the town, are we confident that that will be reimbursed? Is there something that we need to push at the region?
Through the chair to Regional Councillor Crawford, no, staff are confident that it will be reimbursed. There were conversations at the outset that the region would cover all costs related to this, and a memorandum of understanding was signed between staff as well. So we're very confident that the funds will be received. We're just waiting for all the final invoices and accounting to finalize before we send off the bill.
And I do want to, I want to give Cass a shout out. I think probably every single morning we text. It's been a new thing that we do. And I want to thank you for staying. This is a file that never gets closed. It's a new day every single day, and there's always something else that we seemingly have to deal with. So I do appreciate your availability and taking on this that is never ending. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. The staff recommendation is to receive for information. Show of hand. Can I get a mover, please? I see Regional Councillor Dice. Thank you. Any questions, comments, concerns, additional? Seeing none, we'll start the vote. And that passes, I'm sure. We are now on to item FIN-2026-10, the 2025 Annual Investment Report. This was pulled by, Regional Councillor Crawford. Regional Councillor Crawford?
Thank you. The first question is how does this allocation compare to other peer municipalities or best practices?
Through the chair to Regional Councillor Crawford, I have not had the opportunity to go through the other municipalities' investments reports and how we compare. So if that is something that you would like us to do and report back on, we would take direction. But I have not been able to compare that at this time.
That's fair. Since over half the cash is tied up in restricted funds, what portion is truly discretionary or available to the town?
So at this time of the $139 million, about 66 million is being held in town reserves that are not development charges and parkland and so on. Approximately 13 million of that 66 is committed to existing capital projects, and the balance of the funding is really being held, as working capital to pay our invoices with the fluctuations of the tax collections, as well as it's held in reserves such as our stabilization reserve and MAT tax reserve and so on. So those are funds that we don't want to put at risk because there is an immediate need for that.
Right, perfect. So the investment income did drop. I mean, we've done very, very well. I'm, not questioning that at all. But it did drop from 2024 to 2025. What were the key drivers on that?
So largely, through the chair, largely the differences were the Bank of Canada cutting their overnight rates aggressively from the beginning of 2024 to 2025. If you recall, back in 2024, we were investing in GICs earning 4.5% to 6%. That is no longer the case, and we're investing our short-term cash in high-interest savings accounts, earning approximately 3%, just shy of 3%. But that is largely the difference between the income change from 24 to 25.
Okay. What percentage of our reserves currently are in investments?
Are in investments. From the total town reserve, so excluding the non-discretionary reserve, we have about 62% of our total reserves included in investments. And that includes all of our reserves, capital, tax rate stabilization, and so on.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Happy to move it if there's no other questions.
Recommendation is annual investment report for the period January 1st to December 31st, 2025. You receive information, and then the net cash reimbursement of $798,917.29 from the 2025 equity investment transaction in Lexicon be allocated to Strategic Initiatives Reserve. Moved by Regional Councillor Crawford. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, we'll start the vote. And that passes. Thank you, everyone. We're now into OES-2026-09, contract award RFT number T26036, accommodation upgrade project phase 3. This is moved by Regional Councillor Crawford and Councillor Henry. Councillor Henry.
Thank you. I just wanted to start by asking, it says the wards that are affected by this report 1 and 3. And am I reading this wrong, or are we looking at wards 2 and 2?
Who's speaking on this? Dave, is that you?
So I can,
Go ahead, Director
I can
Meredith.
respond through the chair to Councillor Henry. It impacts, I guess, ACC, MCC, and the Operations Center. So those 3 locations in their respective wards.
And the Operations Center. Okay. So the fire hall one that we're referring to, Fire Station 1 headquarters, is located at?
Salem and Roslyn.
Okay. And the building that we're not upgrading is located at?
Salem and Roslyn. It's the same.
Where
so
to?
There were. So what's happened with respect?
So how does it
to,
affect wards 1 and 3?
I'm not sure on the ward.
Director Meredith, at the beginning, at the top of the report, it says subject and then wards 1 and 3. So is it possible that we're taking money from the fire station to accommodate the other recreation centers? Is that? Or is it just we should ignore the wards 1 and 3? Because that's where Councillor Henry's referring to.
There could be a misreference in the ward section of the report. I'm not 100%.
Yeah, no problem.
I don't have the report in front of me right now to see how it's referenced. So, but
okay, no problem.
It's on page 43. Yeah, 43. Page 43.
Let's assume it's a typo then, and can we move on?
I just want to clarify. So, yeah, it was clarification to make sure I'm understanding where we're taking money from and putting it to, because I know there was a change in the name of fire halls, and that's why I'm making sure that I am understanding correctly from the report which fire hall we're referring to.
It looks like
it's not a gotcha moment. It's a do I understand it correctly moment.
Director Meredith,
so I want clarification to make sure.
Fire Station 1 is on Salem and Rossland, and operations on Salem and Rossland. So that's confirmed.
Okay, so I am understanding it correctly.
It is the fire hall headquarters at Salem and Rossland.
Okay, I needed to clarify because I know there's been change in the naming of these stations. So can I ask then when these buildings were built? Like I'm noticing that in the report it's referring to, I guess, a more predominant type of renovation coming up in the near future, and that this money could be used right now for ops versus headquarters? Does that mean headquarters is getting a bigger renovation in the near future?
So within the budget in 2026, there was design money that was allocated for modernization of the fire hall headquarters. What we're saying is part of that modernization project, we would look at dealing with their administrative area and the office improvements as part of that project, which, although council has not approved the 27 budget, we have it budgeted for 2027.
Oh, so the fire hall budget's moving to 27 and we're trying to keep ops in 26?
We have money in 2026 for design with respect to fire hall headquarters. And then we will do and look through the budget process to receive council approval in 27 to complete the works.
Okay. And this is for the office area only?
Well, there's this money that we're reallocating is for the administrative area, yes.
Yes, because it talks about creating an office. It talks about creating a landing desk station for those that are part-time, coming and going. I think the report refers to some kits available for those that work at home. Is that correct?
Yeah, and those are similar implementation measures that we did for phase 1 and phase 2 for all office space at Town Hall, and it will include the administrative areas at MCC and ACC as part of this award.
So the back area behind your office, that's being expanded or that's just being changed? Where everyone sits in that landing space?
There's nothing physically changing within that area. That area was completed as part of phase 1. This impacts more of the fleet and the building maintenance area that wasn't affected as part of the first phase.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Henry. Regent Councillor Crawford, you're up.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Dave, for this, or Director Meredith for this report. Can you tell me why we would do any form of renovations in the ACC when we are looking at $60 million of renovations like 60 minutes from now? Like, I don't understand why we put any of this money into it.
Through the chair to Regional Councillor Crawford. So we have reduced the scope of this project, and sort of what we're doing in the administrative area, none of it is throwaway cost. So anything that we would look to do and sort of how we scope the work is all of the investments that would be made now would be utilized as part of any renovation through the ACC project. So it's not a complete revamp of the administrative area that we originally contemplated. It is more narrowly focused and will just serve sort of the immediate needs of recreation staff over the next couple of years. In all likelihood, if the ACC does proceed, it is a multi-year project, right? So what's being proposed right now as part of this award is minimal in terms of what was originally contemplated. And as I said, there's no throwaway cost associated with this.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Happy to move it.
Thank you. So moved by Regent Councillor Crawford. We have, sorry, let me zoom, OES-2026-09. I'm just going to go ahead and you can all see the recommendations. It's a lot to read. Any questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, we'll start the vote. Thank you. That passes. We are now on to OES 2026-08, Contract Award T26038, MCC Parking Lot Restruction, Contract Administration, Inspection Services, Geotechnical Services. This was pulled by, excuse me, Regional Councillor, Councillor Henry pulled this first.
Thank you, Chair. Quick question with regards to the parking lot. When I look at the map, I just want to know if there's an opportunity during this reconstruction, because it's a reconstruction, not a resurfacing, to add more accessible parking to this space. Is that a possibility?
Yes, having spoke to the project manager earlier today, without any difficulties, we can accommodate a couple of additional accessible parking spaces off the east entrance.
Excellent. That's my only question. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Tyler Moore.
Thank you. The patio area at the northwest corner, that's part of this reconstruction. It looks tired. I see some, grass growing through it. Do we know how much that gets used? I'm there quite often, and I don't ever remember seeing anybody sitting in there. But do we have like user numbers on that area, or do you plan on it being better than it has been?
I might refer this to Director Vida, who would have a better handle on the usage of that space.
Director Vida, do you want to speak on this? Director Vida, if you're speaking, we can't hear you right now. Is your audio settings lined up to your mic?
Chair, I can go offline on this if he's not available.
Because John, I very much appreciate that.
Yeah,
he'll email us all the. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad to see that it's part of this improvement, because I've had complaints about it, about how it looks disheveled. But I just want to know my question. I can talk to Director Vida offline if that is better.
Okay. Do you have any more questions, Councilor John Moore?
No.
Did you want to move this, Councilor John Moore? Thank you. Oh, you raised the hand. I appreciate that. We have 3 recommendations. We can all see them on our respective agendas. Any further questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, we'll start the vote. Here we go. And finally, we're at RCS-2026-02, St. Francis Center rebranding and 15th anniversary programming. This was moved by Councilor Henry. Councilor Henry? Sorry, this was polled.
Thank you. I knew what you meant. Don't worry. Thank you. I wanted to ask a question. So first of all, I want to say that I agree with the report, 100%, everything in the report. Very well done. We get this all the time, that folks think that it's the church, and it's not. I was telling folks about the event, and recently I've been meeting with some folks from the International Black and Diverse Film Festival that I connected with, some artists from the States, bringing them here, and even having the conversation, folks are assuming it's a church. So love the rebranding, think it's great. I wanted to ask again about the cross and where that is going, that will be removed.
We see Robert Gruber on the line. Robert, please. Mr. Gruber, please. Hey, sorry, Mr. Gruber, we also cannot hear you either. This is a prank that Recon Culture is pulling on us. No, I'm teasing. Do you want to try again? Go ahead. No, we see that you're speaking, but we cannot hear you right now.
I can't even see him.
Sorry, I have the Brady Bunch screen. Director Vida, do you want to try? Okay.
You know what? If it'll help at this time, I'll take my question offline, and I'll be happy to move the report.
Thank you, and please share that answer with us, Councilor Henry. We're also interested. Councilor Tyler Moore, I'm sure you have a question. I'm not sure who can respond.
I do. From the Heritage Advisory Committee, I recognize that the physical alterations have been raised via the Art and Cultural Plan, but the immediate action in the GGC seems to be focused on renaming and the anniversary program. However, in the upcoming GGC meeting, if there are any changes to the physical building, Heritage Advisory Committee has asked me to remind staff to include them if that is possible, as they have a vested interest on buildings and knobs and windows and doors and the history of that building. Thank you.
Mr. Gruber, you want to try again? No, unfortunately, we do not.
So mine is
Hear
just
you.
an ask of staff to include HA's.
Councilor Tyler Moore, consider that feedback given. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
This has been moved. Sorry, any other questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, this has been moved by Councilor Henry. Appreciate that. Recommendation: Council approve the renaming of the St. Francis Center to the Ajax Center for the Arts. That the Ajax Center's 15th anniversary programming taking place on the 4th and 5th of July, 2026, be received for information. No further questions, comments, concerns. We'll start the vote. And that passes. All that's left for this meeting is get a mover to adjourn. Show of hands, please. I see Councilor Tyler Moore. Thank you very much. Any questions, comments, concerns on adjourning? Seeing none, we'll start the vote. Great. That passes. I want to keep this going. Everyone, have a fantastic day. Thank you, staff and council. We'll see you at the next meeting.